everybody. My name is Ash, and it's my privilege to be here this evening. I normally work for St David's Church at Exeter College and St Michael's Mountains, just across Island Green, where we're having our St Lucy's Day celebration this evening. And for our prayers, I'll anchor us around St Lucy's Day. Lucy was a native of Syracuse in Sicily. She lived at the beginning of the 4th century when the Roman authorities were attempting to re-establish the worship of gods deity. The emperor himself was the focus of one of the cults. Lucy, as a young Christian, gave away her goods to those that needed them, and was betrayed to the authorities by her angry betrothed, who felt that they should have become his property. She was put to death for her faith around this day in the year 304. Her name in Latin means light, and as her feast day falls in December, she became associated with the one true light, who is coming as the Redeemer of the world, the light that would light the nations, the light that would banish darkness, and let the eyes of all behold truth incarnate. God, our Redeemer, he gave light to the world that was in darkness by the healing power of the Saviour's cross. Shed that light on us, we pray, that with your martyr Lucy, we may reflect the light of Christ, and by what Jesus has done on the cross, come to the light of everlasting life. Amen. Thank you. I'm going to disappear, I'm afraid. I have a church leaders meeting, but I will be praying as I go for sort of your later.
Ladies and gentlemen, don't get too happy. You're going to be on camera. So we are going to let the citizens of Exeter show we enjoy our Merry Christmas, and that stage then is going to take a photograph. So shall we all say, you explain.
We're going to put out a video next week on our social media channels to say Christmas memory, and then we're going to see some versions of a lot of stuff. So since you're here, you're wondering if we could video you all looking at the camera and all together just saying Happy Christmas, and we'll give you a really on here. So I'm going to start you once to count down 3, 2, 1. So I'm calling. 1, 2, 3.
Ladies and gentlemen, I thought it might be wise to do it at the beginning rather than the end. Can I, as we do the usual thing, we go through, ladies and gentlemen, you'll know, you've sat here, even the new ones have sat here a few times now, and please can you keep your comments, can you please address the narrative or the mayor, and if indeed you wish, I shall stop you if you're going to start repeating yourself over and over again, because this is going to be a long night, I think. The first this evening, excuse me. Oh yes. It's now the agenda. Do you accept the council minutes held on the 18th of October, set out on page 7? May I ask everybody who's prepared meeting? Dear, I haven't that tonight. Excuse me. Can you be those in favour for the minutes on the 18th of October?
That's unanimous all now.
Thank you. Item 2 is what has happened to me in the last few months, really. There's several things I'd like to mention. We did have the honour of receiving a card from Buckingham Palace addressed to the Lord Mayor and the people of Exeter in response to the letter signed by King Charles III. We had a very successful dinner at 24 Restaurant in Exeter College, which was in aid of dementia action. I thank those who were there, and I think those who were there must have enjoyed that evening. We raised £1,400, and that's no mean feat. And we had a lot of donations, and I'm thankful to those people who donated whatever they did. Then I had a dinner at the Masters and Weavers, Fuller's, Schumann, Tucker's Hall. I attended the 80th anniversary of the Polish flag rising ceremony. This was a very important ceremony as the 307 Squadron project. We had badges, only 100 made in Warsaw. Members of the Bryce Norton RAF base also joined us. The 47th anniversary street cleaning here, we had a lovely evening there, which we all indulged in our fish and chips as usual, but it was a jolly evening, and I must say that was very well done. We also had a carnival after 24 years. It surprised me at the length of time that how 24 years can be slipped by, and you can remember the last carnival. That's the most worrying thing. But it was very well received, I might say. I attended the Exeter East Mid Devon police staff awards at Barnfield Theatre. Young Farmers Harvest Festival service at the Cathedral, the Dolly, I cannot pronounce that, celebrations at St Matthew's Hall at Topsham, carol service at Cathedral again, the Exeter Railway Band, Maynard School, and Exeter Police. And there is another coffee morning coming up, ladies and gentlemen, on this Saturday at the Guildhall to raise funds for the awareness of Exeter Dementia and Action Group. So I wish those of you who may be able to empty a few coins and come and join us for a cup of coffee. And delicious cakes, I might say. I would also like to say that the update to the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyor Awards, showcasing some initiative and development in the land which has won for the Environmental Impact Award taking place in London this month. This is the award for St Sybil's Point. I also would like, is that relevant? Yes. In the final of the Royal Town Planning Institution, RTAPI, Awards, Excellence in Planning for Health and Wellbeing category, we are in the finalists. So I think this is a good achievement on our performance. Now, it brings us now to the Agenda 3. Which is a public submission, it's a public question from Mr. Gleasley. The question, Mr. Gleasley, would you please stand the answer for you forward? Will you please put the question to the leader, please?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. The question is this: what lessons for the future has this council learned from the procurement process relating to the construction of St Sidwell's Point?
The leader, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you for the question, Mr Cleesby. When procuring a builder for a project as challenging and complex as St Sidwell's Point, it then a two-stage tender process with the contractor, which is what we took out, enables the contractor to fully understand the challenges, risks and solutions, obviously, and before confirming the price and programme. This collaborative approach helps remove any uncertainty and any misunderstanding or misconceptions. Presentations and information sessions about the project during the tender process help the supply chain gain a good understanding and the project requirements for key drivers for success. Keeping a clear register and log of all correspondence and information issued during the tender process helps ensure consistency of communication with all the tendering parties and avoids the risk of procurement challenge. Complex projects require teams on both sides to understand the other's priorities regarding risk and the process that needs to be managed, including resourcing of risk mitigation. The project is a market leading, so communicating the benefits and additional processes is part of the procurement process, and the time needs to be allocated to this.
Mr. Cleesby, do you have a supplementary?
I do, Lord Mayor.
Please.
Thank you. Thank you for the answer. It seems to me, and I'd be grateful for the leader's view on this, that despite all these good practices that went on, this didn't prevent two separate substantial increases in the budget, one in 2017 and one in 2018. And would the leader accept that the council's negotiating position with the contractors was weakened by the fact that the council was so fervently and publicly committed to this project that the contractors had the council over a barrel because the loss of face in not proceeding would be too great?
Peter?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm too polite to say that's nonsense, and what I really think about that response, about that. But just to say that the procurement process was very detailed. There was a failed contract at the start, and we carried on with it. There's no two ways we carried on with it. Whether or not we publicly said it was part of the Labour Group's manifesto, of which we've delivered to this city, and we're proud of it. It is a building that is delivering success in the leisure industry, when a lot of the leisure industries and swimming pools around the country are closing down, Lord Mayor. We continued, and it was the appropriate thing to do. Can I say, Lord Mayor, you failed to mention one award which we were not even on the shortlist for. And that award that we failed to win was the White Elephant Award. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Cleesby. Thank you, Chairman. We now go into the agenda number 4, in which case it's the Planning Committee, and to introduce the minutes tonight is Councillor Lively.
Lord Mayor, can I present the minutes of the Planning Committee held on the 10th of October 2022 on pages 25 to 44 in the agenda? Are there any questions?
Dan, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Did the portfolio holder commit to reporting reporting back to planning committee or whichever is appropriate committee on the final development contribution, which is going to be made under the deferred contribution mechanism, which was agreed at the meeting.
Councillor Tully.
I'm not the portfolio holder, so I'm not sure I can commit on behalf of the portfolio holder. I don't know if the leader has any views on that one. Perhaps you'd like to ask that question at the next planning committee when the portfolio holder is available. Thank you.
Just to say, Lord Mayor, I concur with Councillor Sutton said we will speak to the portfolio holder, and if a commitment was made to do something, we will do it. If no commitment is made, then there's no surprise. We may not wish to do that even at this late stage. Thank you.
Councillor Moore.
Point of order, Lord Mayor. I was asking for a commitment to be made to report back on the deferred contribution mechanism, which was something which was relatively new to the planning committee. So I'm asking for that commitment to be made so that we hear what the outcome of that process is in due course when the current hotel is built.
I would ask that, in fact, I'm looking at the solicitor now, because in my view, I don't think you can give that if the portfolio is not here. I don't think
I think it's something that needs to be looked into in further detail.
Yes, and report back to Council.
Well, if I can add a point of clarification, Lord Mayor, my answer is quite clear. If we have committed to do something, we will do it. If we're not committed, I will concede we will have a look, but that doesn't mean to say we will. I need to talk to the portfolio holder, the planning department, and if we can, we will, and if we can't, there'll be a good reason for not doing so.
Thank you, Leader. Now it's Councillor, we go on to agenda 6, by which case it is now Council. Oh, I'm sorry, I was going to miss you out, Councillor Cole.
Thank you, Lord Mayor.
I jumped on, so can you give your report, please?
I'd like to present the minutes of the Licensing Committee held on the 24th of November 2022 and ask that they be accepted and invite any questions.
Any questions, please? Councillor Fowler, I think there's no questions. Can we go on to November the 30th, agenda 6, please, on page 14-7. Councillor Ward.
Lord Mayor, I present the minutes of the Government Committee for the 30th of November and invite any questions.
Can I ask, is there any questions? I saw Councillor Moore first. Oh, no, I saw Councillor Moore first.
Thank you. In regards to the governance review of Exeter City Council and companies, when will that review be complete?
Can we take questions at the end?
Alice Jones.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. In a similar vein, can the leader please outline what actions have been taken in relation to the Exeter Auditor Report finding on governance agreements for Exeter City Living?
Sorry. Yes. Any more?
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Thank you. 2 questions there. First of all, the report was quite clear in our view. That they pointed out that we need to change the governance structure of ECL. Indeed, Exeter City Living has manifested itself into something much more than we wanted to do going forward, Lord Mayor. That's very important for the success of what we're trying to do in deliver housing for people in this city. I've asked for a complete review to take place of the board of directors and also for who sits on the governance of the board and that's what we're undertaking. We originally put on the 151 officer and also the finance director, so the monitoring officer to be on there to give a legal and a financial thing. That was suggested not so far. Immediately I went, bang, that's it, you're off. And that's what we done. We removed them from the board to make sure there was that distance. So it led me to think we now need to look at it. And the irony of it was, I'd already had a meeting with the chair of the directors at that time to say that we needed to look at it because we're doing residential property and we're doing all of that. So what I'm now doing is we will be dealing with that over the coming months. We will understand exactly who we will have on, what skills we need to have on that board. Obviously financial, legal, and other skills on what we want to deliver as Lord Mayor. And I will present that back, and we will make sure that we have a proper shareholder interaction. And what I'm very keen to do is I've given instructions to the Chief Executive to assist with that, to make sure that that is a transparent process on how we do business, how that's reported back to the council, so there is proper and fair oversight. When is all that going to happen? Well, I'm hoping that's underway now. Discussions have already taken place with certain people. I will pick up the recommendation within the audit and governance for why would not, and I will make sure that we look at all of that so we can bring back what the board is going to look like, because the managing director is moving on. It gives us an opportunity to appoint a new managing director. We've got an interim managing director, and all of that, I want it to be a complete, transparent process. Now, can I give a date when all that is going to happen? No, Lord Mayor. Can I say that's going to happen within the next 2 to 3 months? Yes, Lord Mayor. Can I also say, will that come back to council and the executive? Of course, Lord Mayor. And then also to this council. So there will be full involvement of everything. ECL is very important to me. I think it's a proper area, and perhaps that people ought to ask us for the information about what goes on in ECL, apart from reading about it and so forth. So thank you.
Dan.
Thank you, Eva, for that information. My question was about the review of ex-City Council companies at the Audit and Governance Committee. It was confirmed that the review of the governance, there would be a review of the governance of external companies for Exeter Council, and the recommendation relates to all the City Council companies, not just Exeter City Living, on which there had been this finding. So just to note that in minutes.
Again, I can help there. Lord Mayor, when it comes to Strata, which is what I understand is the other company who are involved, we've already got a process going on there. I currently chair the executive at the moment. That will hand over, I believe, to Tudridge on the next occasion, and that will be coming to the 3 leaders who sit on the executive and indeed the executive committee. We've got some members here who sit on the scrutiny committee, and all that will be scrutinised. I don't see there a problem, but that is a bit slower because in these sorts of things, when you're dealing with other partners over there, you move as the slowest member of the train, I'm afraid, and not all councils are as fast as we are in order to deal with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you very much, Councillor Wardle. Now I call on Councillor Hannaford for as Chair of Strategic Scrutiny Committee that was held on the 17th of November on page 55.
Lord Mayor, I still move the minutes of the Strategic Scrutiny Committee 17th of November, pages 55 to 62. Are there any points or questions, please? No? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. Now I call on Councillor Rizal, who chairs the meeting of the Customer Focused Scrutiny Meeting held on the 1st of December. Can I have the page 63? Councillor Rizal?
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. I'm pleased to present the minutes of the Customer Focused Scrutiny Committee held on the 1st of December. I draw members' attention to a recommendation that was made on the evening of the meeting, which you will find under minute 32 on page 70. And it is recommended that the Council writes to our parliamentary representatives to appraise them of the issues raised in, from the question and in the answer given by Portfolio Holder Councillor Denning in her response, and to ask our political representatives in Parliament to raise these with the Secretary of State. I think this is a matter for Council to discuss if you're in agreement with all that.
Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Now, who's speaking, please? Any speakers? Councillor.
I think we're going to ask Robert Apple, the Bishop of Exeter, and I suggest we also ask the Earl of Devon, Charles Courtney, who also sits in the House of Lords, who sits on the cross benches, I hasten to add, who may also wish to take this up for us as well, if that was
Is that a proposal, Councillor?
I'm happy to accept that proposal on behalf of the scrutiny members unless any present tonight object, but I wouldn't think that's unlikely.
So we accept that as a right. Thank you. No other, any speakers? Right, thank you. Right, all those in favour?
That's unanimous vote.
Thank you. We will move on.
Thank you for that. Are there any further questions on this? If I may address that, there is a further recommendation. That, in my view, would be a recommendation for the executive, because it was a request for consideration of the issues raised in terms of the biodiversity reported in the Exeter plan. So I felt that was something to go back to executive for consideration on the issues raised at the meeting. If members will remember, was about resourcing, whether that would be a reasonable ask. So that would go back to executive. In my view, if that's accepted. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bizot. Sorry, what did you say? Can you start, Councillor? What did you ask? Can I ask what are you asking?
Lord Mayor, the scrutiny committee made a recommendation as per the previous recommendation, so we would ask why council can't decide, because this was discussed and the constraints were noted and they came up with their recommendation.
Excuse us just a moment, please.
Just on that point, that local plan matters are executive matters, and therefore that will have to be considered by executive, as Councillor Bizot has indicated.
So thank you, Councillor Bizot.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, I beg to move forward.
Thank you. We come to the Exeter Chairman, Councillor Williams as Chair of the Councillor Harbour Board, and on October the 26th, 75 page, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I present the minutes of the Exeter Harbour Board of the 26th of October, pages 25 to 79. Any questions?
Harbour Vision Order the last time. It was proposed, can I invite Lord Holder to attend an early meeting of the Water Sports Association, Port Use Group and all other relevant groups? We would very much welcome early engagement, especially on the issue of charging. Secondly, regarding minute 22 on page 78, could the portfolio please let us know a date when the Heritage and Harbour route map will be publicly released, and if it will not be released, why is that?
Councillor Williams.
Thank you. I am happy to meet with any interested party, and I have been doing so for the last few weeks. So if a particular group wants to contact me, Lord Mayor, I'm happy for them to do so, and I will arrange to meet them. As to your second point, can you just remind me? Sorry?
Yes, it was just the date when the Heritage and Harbour route map will be publicly released, and if not, why not? And if it won't be released, why not?
There is a final version of that currently under preparation, and I can't tell you the date that will be presented, but it will come to the Exeter Canal and Quay Trust meeting, and so that's when it will be presented, so I don't have a date at the moment.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Is there no more comments? Diana?
Can I ask the portfolio holder in regards to that, will it therefore then be a public document?
Well, it will be up to the Exeter Canal and Quay Trust to make that decision because they commissioned the actual paper, so it will be a decision for them. But there is a final draft being prepared at the moment. That's all I can say.
Thank you, Councillor.
And if that's all, then I move minutes.
Thank you, Councillor. Now, I call upon Councillor Bionic as Chair of the Executive on the 1st of November 20 agenda 1081, please. Page 81.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. The minutes of the Executive, 1st of November, minute 108, minute 109, minute 110, minute 111. Lord Mayor, there are two recommendations here for Council, and I formally move those recommendations.
I second those recommendations, Mr. Chair.
Those in favour? Or is there any question? Right. Yes.
Can I answer when you move to the debate?
Should be sorry, that is my fault. Moving. Is there those who wish to debate the affairs before the decision? No? Right. Now we go to that. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. All those in favour?
That's unanimous vote, has been carried.
Minute 112, Lord Mayor, Devon Carbon Plan, and there are 8 recommendations in your papers which I formally move, Lord Mayor.
Who's seconding that, please? Yes.
Seconded, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Now, we would say that we debate. Anybody wish to debate this, please? Councillor Moore.
Thank you. I've got a number of issues that I would like to raise, please. I just want to draw to attention to the fact that the Devon Carbon Plan has presented its goal in a very interesting way to reach net zero. The DCE partners agreed to work to reduce Devon's emissions to net zero by 2050 at the latest, with a reduction of 50% by 2030 compared to 2010 levels. So I would like to know what the portfolio holder thinks of this reflection. I'd also like to know, in the wording of the recommendation, it talks about reflecting on. I want to know what this might be in practice, particularly in relation to transport. We need to know what actual action is going to happen to help us achieve targets. And the final item, I would wonder if the portfolio holder, which I raised with the executive, provide evidence for the statement of the equality impact assessment that religious groups would not wish to improve their buildings, as it's not a fair reflection on the many religious organisations that have been at the forefront of the movement to demand action on climate change. And it would be a disservice for this statement to be made.
Councillor Moore, please, you're giving a speech. It's all right, thank you. Right. Yes, all right, fine. No, it's all right. Go on. But thank you. Right, ladies and gentlemen, any other questions, please?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. In answer to, if I can remember all of the questions, with regard to the targets set by Devon County Council, they're actually aligned to the national targets, aren't they? Half by 2030 and then by 2050 at the latest. Obviously, that's not great news for us, but buried within that actually is, obviously, as a city, we have a commitment for 2030, and Devon County Council has quite a number of different facilities and buildings within our city. Their own corporate plan for carbon reduction has a target of 2030. So that's useful, because how can we deliver 2030 in the city if the county council with its major buildings aren't aiming at the same target? So they are within their own carbon footprint. Obviously, county-wide, they have a bigger challenge than we do in a lot of ways. They have more population, more dispersed population, more complex population, they have coastal towns, etc. So what they produced is at the end, as you can see from the document, a very lengthy build-up. A lot of stakeholders were consulted, and it is their plan. I can't say I'm happy with it, but the bit that directly affects us, as in the buildings within our city, they're in for 2030, so I have to take that as a positive. Okay, and the second one was around transport and the implications for our own targets with regard to transport. Transport is 22% of the city's carbon emissions. It is a key target we need to get resolution on. We are working with the county council. When they say 2050 at the latest, they do actually mean that, because they are trying to make significant steps as they go along. So it's down to our transport group and our officers who have good connections within the county council to actually make the suggestions and make the push that means that when they are making making an action within the county, it's here that they do it. And that's something we specifically asked to put into the recommendation, was that they treat Exeter as an innovation centre, somewhere where if they want a solution tried out here. I hope that, did I answer all your questions? Yes. I can't really comment on that. I didn't draw together the impact assessment, but I'll get to the bottom of that and email you the answer if that's okay.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions? Right, Councillor Bialik, would you? Oh.
So your hand raised.
No, I think Councillor Moore wants to move and then we'll get to you.
Right.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bailey. I would like to propose a couple of amendments. Yeah. First one to number 2. I would like to add in at the beginning, reaffirm the commitment to the City of Exeter's goal, net zero by 2030, and at the end, to add in to open urgent and meaningful negotiations with Devon County Council on transport and the 2050 target to develop a supportive policy context for the City of Exeter's net zero plans. The second amendment I would like to propose a change to amendment to recommendation number 5, which talks about request of biannual update. I think we do need to have a twice yearly report, even if that report is, they haven't provided us with any information, because it's really important for the new subcommittee that's going to be set up on targets. So can we change the request to report twice yearly? So I think that then it's a biannual stuff, I can't get my head around it, but I feel we do must have a report twice yearly. And then a further new amendment, please can we remove the reference to religious groups in the political impact assessment, because there's been no evidence provided to back up that statement. And I feel it's not appropriate for council to make such a statement when religious groups have been at the forefront of climate action. Thank you.
Councillor Moore, and I'm going to speak
Well,
to
I'm
you.
a mover of the motion and I'm prepared to accept some of that.
The point is, we have been read 3 amendments to this. To be perfectly honest, we're expected to read that. It would have been wise for you to have printed it out for particularly myself and perhaps the leaders of each of the groups to read it. I'm sorry to say that you are expecting councillors to make amendments by just speaking to it, and that is not fair on any of the councillors here. It should be in writing first. And I'm talking to you about also in future, because I'm not aware of what you are wanting to amend. I know I'm chairing this, but it would be much helpful for the rest of us.
Lord Mayor, it helps and understand what you say. And yes, for those of us who have been around all this sort of stuff for many a decade, the amendment should be moved before we start.
Absolutely.
But, you know, let's try and be a little bit flexible here and help people. With regard to the point with regard to the transport, I'm happy to accept that and to carry that out and try to do that, because that is something we're trying to do in the event. And so I'm happy to do all of that, not a problem, right? And it was nothing to do with me, because your bus didn't turn up tonight. It wasn't. With regard to about Devon County Council, I can't instruct John Hart. I can ask, I can't get him to the grass. So he isn't in this way, is it? So we will ask John Hart. And as for the impact assessment, the portfolio we're going to take that way and have a look at that. And once again, if we can do something that makes sense, we will. If an assessment being made, if data given, then we have to look at it. So I'll ask the portfolio to look at it. If that helps, well, raise it. We give you that view then. So that is the position, Lord Mayor, that I'm prepared to do.
Right.
With these couple of 3 amendments.
Would you answer, Councillor Moore, if indeed the 2 amendments that Councillor Breyer, do you accept that? And what is the one that is left that you wish?
Okay, thank you, Lord Mayor, and I do appreciate it is obviously easier if it's written down. Thank you very much for the point about transport. I will agree with that. We are going to need this as evidence, but if that's what you say, then I'm happy to go with that. The qualities impact assessment, I did raise it at the executive. I raised that point, and I wrote subsequently to the portfolio holder. I have an exchange of emails, so I actually feel it's had an opportunity to have a look at. So I would like to remove that as a recommendation, that we remove that from the report, because we have no evidence to substantiate that statement. And if it needs to be added back in, I'm happy to apologise to everybody, but I feel that at this moment it's unfair to include that in the report.
Second, who's going to second it? Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Yes. We have to debate the last amendment first. Who's going to speak on it, please? Yes. Anybody else reading? No, well, then do we have to take a vote from this second.
We do, we won't be supporting that. I'll try to be fair and reasonable here with 2 and 3 points. Trying to take them all on. I'm not going to be so churlish to say if you don't accept them all, then you won't accept them. I'm not going to do that. So we'll still do those 2 other things. But with this, just because you ask something, don't say it's going to happen. Portfolio owners deal with it. Let him deal with it. And that's why we will not be supporting this amendment. Because for the same reasons that the amendment's been put, we don't know until it's been firmly implemented. Thank you.
Legally, the amendment has been put before us, so we have to go with it. So, who is in favour of the amendment, please?
That's 7 in favour of that.
Those against, please.
That's 24 against.
And abstentions, please.
3 abstentions, 4 against. So
yes. So that falls. Now we have to. Are we debating now the?
Motion as amended or as
Yes. So those in favour, please.
So unanimous vote for that. So those have been carried as amended.
Thank you. Thank you, members. Now, Councillor Byer.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. You have to smile, you know that. Minute 113, legal obstacles to Port Marine Safety Code compliance. Here, Lord Mayor, we have 2 recommendations I formally move.
Lord Mayor, I'd like to suspend
Yes.
the
Yes, please.
Oh, sorry.
Just because I support these recommendations with refer to the canal and river, and as quite a lot of us know in this Guildhall, this refers to the waters a mile off of Exeter, and a lot of people don't seem to realise that the council is responsible not just for the canal but for the river to that extent. And courtesy of the harbour master, a number of us have been able to enjoy going out on the council vessel to have a view of some of these areas of responsibility, and it is quite a lot, not least of course the health and safety side of it. I think most of you know this canal, the canal, as approaching 500 years of ownership by this council. We are quite, I'm not sure whether we're unique within England and Wales, but certainly getting near to it, that actually owning a canal on our books for which we have responsibility. I think it's fair to say that up to recent times, this council, going way back to the 1800s, regarded the canal because it was loss-making up to the opening of the railways here in 1844 at down to Sydney, past this basin. It was regarded as something of a millstone. It was always leaking, it needed repairs, continuous maintenance and so on. And indeed, in the 1960s and 1970s, I looked up some of the history of this stuff today, there were plans to fill it in, or part of it in, for a road to take lorries to Marsh Bar. Now that's not 55, 60 years ago. You know, you think what Philistines were these people? The attitude then seemed to be that you know the cost of everything, but the value of nothing. And in my view, the canal is we undervalue that like a lot of other assets the City Council own, that are there right under our noses. You know, for example, Northern Egg and Rougemont Gardens, just to take a close example. So I'm really pleased to support the recommendation for the plan on the basis that we at long last recognise the canal and the river as a prized asset to this council. I'm pleased to see that we are going to do something about that by putting this harbour revision order and enable both these stretches of waterway to contribute to our carbon reduction targets and a great source of recreation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak? Ledbetter? Councillor, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to agree with exactly what you said, Tony, the canal and the estuary of Topsham is a great asset for this city. Completely support this action. The City Council tried some years ago to do a harbour revision, but I can't remember how long ago. Within my lifetime, so it didn't get anywhere. So I'm delighted we're now moving forward. I thank the city for doing that and for supporting this. Nobody wants to pay any more than they have to, but I'm comforted by the fact that the city said it's not going to be a money-raising exercise, it's to cover the costs, and I'm delighted to show the consultation on these costs. So I welcome this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Actually, I don't think but I was canoeing.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just one comment to Councillor Wardle to follow up on his comment about filling in the canal in 1960. Labour were not running the that was not the decision around. And I thank Councillor Ledbetter for his words of support. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Canal and Rivers team, particularly our Harbour Master, Graham Forshaw, who's done a fantastic job in initiating some councillor development, running these sessions, taking us down the estuary to show the responsibilities that we have. We've got 50 buoys all the way down to Exeter that we are responsible for. So he's run some development sessions. He's also offered some shadowing of the safety patrols, and I was meant to go out on all of those in the summer, but the council postponed 3 times because of bad weather. But they go out to try and improve safety of the users as well. He's a great asset to us and the whole team. And people will have been aware of the Johnny Eager thinking at the end of October. If it hadn't been for the quick action of our canal and river team, we would have had a massive pollution incident. It was very, very well contained and quickly dealt with. So, you know, I have my thanks for that. And I think that illustrated a sort of serendipity that thinking happened just as we were trying to get the carbon vision order. We did not engineer it, it just happened. And it shows how important it is that we need to be sure we do not allow irresponsible boat owners to pollute our canal and river. And so once we actually secure this harbour revision order, hopefully then we won't see those sorts of incidents happening again. Thank you, Lord.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Those in favour, please.
That's a unanimous vote of that has been carried.
Thank you. Councillor Fire.
Minute 114, Lord Mayor, Exeter playing pitch strategy, and here there is one recommendation which I formally move.
Thank you. Councillor Rees, please.
With the financial constraints in mind, what funding options does the portfolio hold in mind? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yeah, so with this plain pitch strategy, comes after a lot of hard work, a lot of years of work with different national governing bodies of sport, and I think we're going to look at all options available to us. So obviously the council might know that we're already receiving some funding from Sport England. That's something partnership that we're really proud of and hope to take forward, looking at SIL money, Section 106. We'll look at all avenues, and we think that lots of national governing bodies of sports will be very interested in investing in us.
Thank you. We haven't had a second. I beg your pardon, I didn't see. No, that's all right. Thank you. It's Christmas. Those in favour, please.
That's unanimous, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Bidding 155.
155, Lord Mayor, Annual Scrutiny Report 21-22, and there's one recommendation to approve the report. I shall move, Lord Mayor.
I second, Lord Mayor.
Is there anybody who wishes to speak on this, please? Oh, we can go to the vote. Those in favour?
That's unanimous, Lord Mayor. That has been carried.
Well, now we come to 119, Councillor Bailey.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. The minutes of the 29th of November, minute 116, 117, 118, 119, members' allowances 23-24, Lord Mayor. And there are 7 recommendations here for Council to consider, and I formally move.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody wish to debate on this? When we go to vote, please. Those in favour?
That's unanimous, Lord Mayor. That has been carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Minute 120, amendment to terms of reference for the Joint Consultation and Negotiation Committee. There is one recommendation. I shall move, Lord Mayor.
I second that, Lord Mayor.
Anybody who wishes to discuss this? Then we go straight to the vote, please. Those in favour?
That's unanimous, Lord Mayor. That has been carried.
Thank you.
Minute 121, Lord Mayor, working towards net zero, Exeter City Council's corporate carbon footprint report and carbon reduction action plan, and here are 5 recommendations here, Lord Mayor, which I formally move.
Second, please.
I second that, Lord Mayor.
Those discussion, please. Councillor Moore, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It's more of a question of clarification, really, on the recommendation 4 about the detailed investment plan based on cost of proposals. Can you clarify, is this a statement of fact, or is there going to be an action plan which costs up the proposals in the plan that accompanies this document?
The portfolio holder, Lord Mayor, may be able to cast some light on that. If not, we'll have to get back to Councillor Moore. I'll leave it to you, Councillor.
Thank you, Thank you, Lord Mayor. I think I will need to get back to you on that. There will be a plan, but you mentioned costing, so I will need to check that element is within it. There is a plan, but yeah, I need to get back to you on that. That's okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? Right, we go to the vote. Those in favour?
That's unanimous, Lord Mayor. That has been carried.
122, Councillor Peter.
Lord Mayor, 122, local council supporting fund, sport fund 223. Lord Mayor, there is a recommendation for council. I formally move.
I second it, Lord Mayor.
Is there anybody wishing to speak on this? Denny, Councillor Denny.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I can't really let this opportunity go by to highlight the fact that we are now helping people, in this this crisis of not being able to pay bills and whatever. Okay, this is the housing support fund 3. This time we've actually paid some that are actually in work, okay, we've decided there will be no applications. We've worked out who perhaps is getting a bit behind on the council tax, which generally means that they are now in that the middle, do you know what I mean? That sometimes people in the middle don't get help. So we are actually now beginning to pinpoint families in that way. It is cumulative, okay, so it means that you can fall into different categories. So families can get between £100 and £650, which is going to go a long way to help towards their bills. The actual funding will be given to the people who are entitled to it, the families, in January, and obviously I support this recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. We go to the vote then, please. All those in favour?
That's unanimous vote, Lord Mayor. That has been carried.
Thank you. Minute 123, Councillor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Minute 123, Mary Arches Street Car Park redevelopment, Lord Mayor. There's one recommendation here and 14 resolved items. I so move the recommendation, Lord Mayor.
Can I have a seconder, please? Those who wish to speak on this? Then we go. Councillor Moore, sorry, I nearly missed you.
Thank you very much. This is going to be a significant piece of work, and I spoke about it at the executive meeting. But I would like to invite the leader if he would make a commitment to contact the residents immediately adjacent to the site or as soon as possible after this decision is made by council, because this is a really big change that will be happening right next door to them. So a letter early to say this is what's happening, here's who to contact and we'll keep you informed. We're very welcome to make sure that people don't start worrying about what may or may not happen. Thank you.
Councillor Wood, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I just wanted to highlight, really, we were talking about the carbon reduction plan, which is a living document, and within these papers it notes that the Mary Arches was one of the first canopy car parks within the UK. The cost of constructing that canopy has now been fully paid, so those solar panels are ours. But they will, as part of the plan, there will be an assessment to find out the most effective use when we relocate those panels. So they won't be lost, they will be relocated, and they will be generating energy for the city when they're relocated. Thank you.
Thank you. Shall we go to the vote? Oh yes, Councillor Diana.
Okay, thank you, Lord Mayor. This is the difficulty with having one recommendation with a lot of resolved items, and sometimes the questions can relate or the contribution can overlap. With regard to the report, it is quite clear that there is no current intention to include properties outside the indicative red line boundary. On the question of consultation, we will consult with everybody at the appropriate time. However, this seems to be an issue that is being raised that some assurance needs to be given, and all I can assure the residents at this moment in time is the content of this paper, which makes it clear what we're doing and what the recommendation is really about. That we agree the demolition budget. That's what we're agreeing, that's what we're debating, the demolition budget, which I've moved. The other issues about consultation and debate, I know there's an anxiety out there with some people because, well, I certainly have got encouraging that anxiety, if you know what I mean. I've tried to be quite clear, so there's a lot of other proposals over there. If there is a need, I'm going to talk to the planning director in relation to this to see whether or not we are required to, because I don't believe we are, but whether or not we ought to, which is really the point you're making, whether we ought to. And I will look into that point. But you know, read the papers, it's quite clear in my view what we're doing, and that's what the recommendation is. Demolition of the site, that's what it's about. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Any more comments? Then we go to the vote. Those in favour, please.
In favour of that.
Any against? And abstention?
2 abstentions.
Thank you. Carried, yes. Councillor Bayer.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. 124, Community Infrastructure Levy Partial Review Consultation, and you will see that it's a resolved matter where we put through 4 items from the executive. I believe, Lord Mayor, this was subject to a call-in which was dealt with last evening. No further actions taken, just for the information. Those are the resolved matters before us, Lord Mayor. Thank you.
Right, Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just a clarification, Leader, if you could, in regard to the result item 2, the consultation. Can you assure us that this will be a public consultation and carried out under the guidelines of the Road Consultation Charter? I only asked this because with other local authorities, and their consultation process hasn't been as full as I would expect under our charter. I just wanted that reassurance.
Sorry, Lord Mayor, just so are you saying that ours isn't as good as somebody else's? Is that what
Ours is better than some.
Oh,
when you look at
say it.
that in regard to another authority that carried out this sort of consultation, it was a very narrow consultation, had very little feedback from it. My concern is here, we just used the word consultation. I just want to reassure you that it's a public consultation and will fall in line with our own charter that we designed on consultation.
Lord Mayor, I can answer that. I think you were there last night. And so the point about this is we will follow our consultation charter. We will consult publicly with people. It's a shame we've wasted a week. It's a shame we've wasted a week of that consultation period, and we're going to have consultation as soon as possible, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Moore, did you wish to ask a question?
Councillor Moore, do you have your hand raised?
Oh, sorry. So we go to the vote.
Petition result.
Right. Is infrastructure.
And infrastructure budget status 2022, which is resolved. I think there are any questions on that.
Is there? You, Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Can I please ask the Leader whether he's had the opportunity to seek the advice that he said he would do so to my question? To my help, Leader. Basically, I spoke about the subject plan. And in my view, the regulations stating that 25% of silver seats should go to that neighbourhood. You were going to seek further advice on that matter. Have you had that opportunity to do so?
Yes, that's right. Councillor Wood, did you wish to stand up first before you want to declare an interest?
I'll declare an interest with regard to the slightly changed focus within the infrastructure statement, but also with 126.
All right. Councillor Morgan.
Thank you very much. I have 2 questions. My first question is regarding to bullet point number 1. You said that there was an agreement in place about how money would be spent. Since then, the still regulations have been updated. So can you now comment on whether that agreement should be updated as well? And secondly, last night at the meeting, which I felt was a very productive one in important to discuss the issues relating to the levy and how it's applied. You spoke about how you choose to work with other portfolio holders and directors and such like. I was wondering if you would consider choosing to work with local board members and involve them in discussions about how the community infrastructure levy is to be spent in their wards. Thank you.
Thank you. Two good points there. First of all, the advice Ian Collison, I mentioned to Ian Collison, come back to me, but I do know that under our processes, we are not obliged to give 35%. My understanding was that they actually accepted that that goes into the main pot. So there is no, I said I would seek further advice, and that is what Ian is coming back to. Be very careful when you move to say each ward should have its own pot of silk. Because as a city, we are a closed-knit society over there. We work together. And there are some areas which have more development than others. St Thomas, for example, my group, St Thomas. Some areas of high elevation where we still want to do work with the board councillors and with the community down there. But if our pot is being written because we're not building, we're not making it, you know, I can't think of the problem. That's what we're saying. So let's be very careful when we look back inwardly. So that's the point. So as for the update, I will give that update and I will get back to you. With regard to the discussion with board members, well, I do have meetings, particularly with my board members. I think I am outstanding a meeting with the Derry Arts and Gems. But here we are, I'll do it again. This phone takes incoming calls, Lord Mayor. I have not got time to speak to 38 different councillors. Are you okay? Anything you want to talk about? Please ring me. Please, when I have a meeting with the leaders, why don't you email me and say, Leader, I'd like to talk about this with you at the leaders' meeting. And I have a leaders' meeting with you every month. Why don't you come forward and say these things? You know I'm always engaged. My members have certainly got my mobile phone. I talk to the members concerned about all those issues. You can talk to me, Andrew, Councillor Ledbetter, talk to me about we didn't do it all, but of course we rely on our Labour councillor in Tottenham to do the good work. So what I'm saying is, please contact me. Don't try to make it out that I'm not talking to people. But you can see, Lord Mayor, it is irritating me a little bit, because that's not how I want to do things. You want to talk to me about stuff in your ward, come and talk to me. Talk to the portfolio holders. They're here for that purpose. So to say that we're not talking, Lord Mayor, is a little bit unfair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lord Mayor, on a point of clarification, I have emailed the leader and deputy leader on at least 3 occasions asking for a board meeting, and I have not had a satisfactory response.
Thank you, Councillor. As this is, there's no vote on this. Councillor Ryan, please.
Thank you. I'd just like to apologise to Councillor Mitchell for the fact that I haven't yet managed to rearrange the board meetings. We haven't done it for any of your board councillors yet, purely because there's been so much other business at the moment that has to be dealt with, so we weren't able to start that round again. We did arrange them as part of the last round, but unfortunately I think you weren't able to be there because you were not working, and so we ended up with just one councillor there. So we would certainly like to meet you again if you want to request that again, or just send in questions or give the leader a ring or myself if you can't get hold of him. So I'd just like to offer my apology that we haven't managed to do that yet.
Thank you. Councillor Reid, please. Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes, the leader advisor wants advice on whether the council could contribute to the Labour plan. A few questions. My first is, what is the result of that advice, please? And secondly, you confirmed that you would seek advice about any inclusion of Mountain Bridge, Water Lane and the Quay as areas for infrastructure improvement, whether that would be raised as a recommendation at a future council meeting. So my question is, which future council meeting can we expect that to come up at, please?
We have so much put in front of you, the neighbourhood plan survey. Yeah, well, I'm trying to give you the information that you require. The regulations allow areas with a neighbourhood plan to retain 25% of silver seats from the development in the area. However, there's always a however. Minutes from the Exeter St James Community Trust in 2015 refer to a decision made locally to provide the silver seats to be used across the city. This approach applies citywide. That's exactly what I thought and what I tried to communicate. Councillor Reid, I'm sorry I've got the lost. Yes, please. So I want to give you an answer.
No, that's right, no problem. So it's, you stated that you would seek advice on whether the council could contribute to the neighbourhood plan. So I'm just wondering, do you have that advice? Yes?
I can't hear you.
It's a neighbourhood plan. So, yes, exactly. Well, there are two bullet points there. Let's ask about the bullet point just above resolved, which is Mountain Bridge, Water Lane and the Quay. We stated that these could come as recommendation at a future council meeting. Can we ask which council meetings they come?
Right, thank you. I'm back with it, Lord Mayor. So there's been a series of email exchanges, asking what is going to happen with Mountain Bridge. As we know, it's been taken down, one, for safety purposes, and two, it's slipped down the list in relation to our capital budget, which received about £500,000, some money put in from the county council, and there was some money put in indeed from the Quay and Canal Trust to replace that bridge. Like a lot of these things nowadays, I thought that would cost much to replace that. No, it's engineered and over-engineered and everything else. So it came down, we had to remove it for safety purposes, and we tidied up the other side of where the bridge is at the moment, which looks okay at the moment. So the question was, are we going to replace it? Well, yes, we would like to replace it. We haven't got that money for that purpose at this time. The 151 officer will be bringing us forward a revised capital spending, which we will have to discuss at the February council meeting, and we will consider that in the light of everything else. And if you are like me and you do listen to the various radio programmes, which is telling you a lot about budgets, what companies are doing, local authorities are doing, what government is doing, in relation to reducing capital budgets because they can't afford to revenue finance them at this time, and they're reducing them. That's a fact. It's a fact. That's not me. That's a fact. And I have to tell you, you will be hearing from us in due course. That's exactly where we are. So it's those things that we have to decide on there, is what are our priorities? And that's what we will have to decide as a council. As a council, what do we want to basically repair or replace first? It's as simple as that. It's a bit like being at home, doing your home improvements. You want to do that this year, well, you have to wait until next year. We all make those decisions day in, day out. What I did say in the email to Councillor Reid, there may be opportunities, and this is where I was trying to be helpful. I was trying to be helpful to say that we will be quite clearly, if the water lane is also over the retail park coming forward, and we will be taking hopefully silver payments for that. Now, I'm not making a necessary correlation between the two, otherwise I'm proving Councillor Mitchell's point here. But when the money comes in, we start, just as we did with Pinhope, the councillors Pinhole in the room, had a lot of development in Pinhole and very little infrastructure. Let's be brutally honest. All right? I had, can you buy a pint of milk challenge in Pinhole, and it's very difficult. And they need resources, they need facilities. And we're coming on to that in a moment, Lord Mayor. So when we need we need to support the communities in the area, and money comes, there's the perfect excuse, in my view, the perfect reasoning. And I fully expect that when development starts down there, I expect, and I know I'm going to get it, emails from the St David's councillors quite rightly saying, we need this, we need that, and we'll sit down and we'll have a grown-up conversation on how to deliver that, just like we will be dealing with in a moment with a minute somewhere else and in other communities. So I hope that gives some satisfaction in what I'm trying to do. It's a tough decision, we're all going to have to make it. And, you know, there's going to be some big decisions for us all to make. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a result matter, so move on, please, Councillor Braddock.
126, Lord Mayor, Pinhole Community Club. I see Councillor Wood has declared an interest and left the meeting. Here, Lord Mayor, there are 3 recommendations which I formally move.
Second, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Anybody wish to speak on this? Councillor.
In Pinhole, you blink, and when you open your eyes, you see another 100 houses built. And as Councillor Bialik has learned through his tour, and in Collinson learned through his, buying a pint of milk, a loaf of bread, and a newspaper is a challenge, which has become a bit of a standing joke. However, the idea of a hub arose from the community, I think about 6 or 7 years ago. Councillor Harvey may remember better, when they were going to close the library. And the people at Pinhole said, no, we don't want our library closing. And then out of that came this idea that we could have the library moved somewhere with other facilities that we knew we were going to need as well because of the building. Now, in Pinhole, we have a strong identity as people of Pinhole, but also people of Exeter. Exeter's the city of literature. And we didn't have many facilities, but we made our own fun. With the help of ward grants, there's a series of free little libraries in Pinhole that regularly put on events. Not only did we have children's story time this summer, but we had adult story time, which was my most enjoyable afternoon of the summer, to be honest. And I'm going to get an elephant in this room out here. This recommendation is to give money for the Pinhole Hub, which is a local group and a local committee run by residents who are also raising their own money and owning the project. And it consists of S106 and SIL money. S106 has very strict directions. It must be spent within a certain area and on certain things. SIL money, however, can be spent anywhere within the city. Now, we do need the Pinhole Hub in Exeter, we absolutely do. In Pinhole, rather, because it's not just for Pinhole people, because it is right by the station where people from St James and Polslow and the city centre can come in and enjoy the events that will be on there. But we do definitely need it, and I applaud this recognition of our need for a real facility. It was placed in exactly the right place by the train station, and there's going to be co-bike, well there are co-bikes and co-cars there, and it's near the inclusive playground, which Councillor Harvey had put in under his direction, and there will be a cafe which overlooks the play park, so parents can sit and have a coffee and watch their kids enjoy the play equipment. It's been very well thought out. There's going to be an extra care room for people who may need help to wash and shower, and they can go and have that assistance. However, the rest of the money is SIL money, and as I said, it doesn't have to be spent in Pinhole. Not all SIL money from Exeter Pinhole buildings has been spent in Pinhole. Some of it, I'm told, went on the roundabout at IKEA. I don't have a problem with that. I've been to IKEA recently and bought a very nice rocking chair. Some of it, I'm told, went to St Sidwell's Point. I don't have a problem with that
I love swimming there. Some of it might go anywhere in Exeter, Womford, St Thomas, where something is needed. I don't have a problem with that. I recognise Pinhoe has needs. I thank the executive for recommending that those are met with her, and there may be other needs that come up as we have more S106 and SIL and more developments, but I don't have a problem in sharing it with the wider community. Thank you.
Anybody else? Harvey, please, Councillor Harvey. Sorry, Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I have absolutely no difficulty at all in echoing the comments of my colleague councillor from Pinhoe. In Pinhoe, we have an understanding of the use of SIL for infrastructure development across the city. Councillor Oliver left out of her list or possibly money towards the rail station from March Park as well, which will be a huge advantage in a lot of things that this council is attempting to do, particularly the carbon plan. We will be able to get return from Pinhoe from new developments on the west of East Devon City Council and from developments in the east of Exeter. You'll be able to get a train very easily over to get to work or whatever you need to do in March Park very shortly in January when that station opens up. So yes, we are very understanding of the depth and breadth of the value of SIL being spent across the city. It goes further than that. South Western Rail have already started saying in some of their meetings and discussions with people that the buffet service on their trains may not be quite as adequate as people require, and they have already started to note that the various different stations across the railway line, the Waterloo railway line through to London Waterloo, which starts at St David's and stops at Pinhoe, Hollyton station in particular, the cafe and the refreshments there have been noted, and South Western Rail are already talking about Pinhoe Hub before even anybody has put a shovel into the ground, and the cafe and the toilets and the facilities that will be there. The impact of Exeter is being felt across the country. What we do here in Exeter, the rest of the country does afterwards. So I'm very pleased to see this money being spent on the hub in Pinhoe. I'm very pleased to see the fact that it will be based and shrouded upon the extension of the library, which the Tories at County Hall wish to shut. And generally speaking, SIL has to be used across the city, and this is a perfect example of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Firstly, I welcome this recommendation. I welcome the funding that is occurring up in Pinhoe. However, several statements have been made during this debate, which I do feel that I need to correct. You are correct that SIL can be and should be across the whole city, but where you have a neighbourhood plan, the regulations are slightly different. And therefore, I would respectfully ask everyone to look at Regulation 59A of the new regulations which are out there. I'm sure Ian Collinson will be looking at that, because that's the regulation that I'm pointing to, but it's very clear in terms, in my view, of the guidance that it presents for areas that have neighbourhood plans in place where SIL is treated differently.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there anyone wish to speak? So we go to the recommendation, please. Those in favour?
That is a unanimous vote. That has been carried.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Hunt. Oh yes, can we Councillor Wood go back?
Minute 127, Lord Mayor, I'll review General Fund Revenue Budget 22-23, Quarter 2, and there are 5 recommendations which are formally put.
Thank you, Councillor. Anybody wishing to speak on this, please? Those in favour?
28 in favour, Lord Mayor.
Any against, please? Abstentions?
5 abstentions, Lord Mayor. That has been carried by majority vote.
For majority vote. Councillor Payne.
Thank you. 127, Lord Mayor. Sorry, I've just done that one. 128, 22, 23, General Fund Capital Monitoring Statement, Order 2, and there's 2 recommendations here, Lord Mayor, which I formally move.
Second, Mayor.
Anybody wish to speak on this? Then I go to the vote. Please, those in favour? Those against?
That's 28 in favour.
Those against, please. Those abstention.
So everyone's raised hands. 5 abstentions, Lord Mayor, so that's been carried by majority.
Yes. 129, Councillor Payne.
In 129, Lord Mayor, 22, 23, HR8 Budget Monitoring Report, Quarter 2, there are 2 recommendations which I formally move.
Second, please.
Second, Lord Mayor.
For those any wish to speak, Councillor.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to ask a question in the budget about, there's a budget line for ash dieback, and that's been in the budget for quite a long while, and it remains unspent, and obviously it's to replace trees that will be need to be removed from ash dieback. So it's £300,000 that keeps rolling forward. I'm worried that it's not going to be lost if it's not spent, and I'm wanting to know why it's not being spent, because we need to plant trees before they have to be removed. Thank you.
Councillor Payne.
Yeah, this is on HRA land, isn't it? Yeah. Well, just to say, as for ash dieback, as you know, there's only 1% of the trees. Am I right to say there's 1% of the ash trees which will survive and a lot are coming down? And it's a question of the HRA. So I wouldn't be wanting to have that fund or that allocation removed. I think we need to understand what we're doing to spend it to make sure that, one, trees are safe and they're not a danger to people who are aware of it. That's the first thing, and then obviously we need to deal with that. So we can ask her, when the portfolio is in the room, she's heard me say this, and I feel sure she'll be back asking the appropriate directors on how we're going to deal with this. There's obviously a cross change, obviously with David Bartram's portfolio, who's the man with the chainsaw. She's the woman with the budget, and so they're going to have to get together and get it sorted. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, please? As we go.
Yeah, can I just say, sorry, Mayor, obviously I agree with what our leader has said, okay, and I will ask a question on it portfolio leader. If you want to put it in an email so that I get it correct, your proof correct, then I will get back to you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Now we go to the vote, please. Those in favour? Those against? Oh, I beg your pardon. Those against? And those abstention, please.
That's 4 abstentions, Lord Mayor, so it has been carried by majority.
Thank you. 130.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Item 130, Treasury Management, half-yearly update. Here, Lord Mayor, with your recommendation, I formally move.
Second that, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Any questions on these? Councillor Spalding, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I noted that there's a use of the green account with Barclays. However, do you feel it's inappropriate to use Barclays considering their poor environmental record in general? And what advice has been given to the Council on the environmental impact of Barclays following the recommendation from scrutiny? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor White, please.
I'll have to look at all those things. I personally have no accounts at parties, that's my personal decision. I'm only responsible to myself. However, we have to weigh that against that we have to, we've got a duty as a local authority, as custodians of the finance, to make sure we get the best possible thing. However, having said that, there are also political aspirations that we all have. I certainly will ask those questions. We need to go back, Councillor Sparling, to find out what we do with that.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone? Then we go straight to the vote, please. All those in favour?
29 in favour of that.
Those against?
One against.
Oh, sorry. Two against.
And the abstentions, please.
2 abstentions for that, so that has been carried.
131.
131, provision of the council's attention agency staff, this is a resolved item.
Yes, there is.
132, request for a variation in Hackney Heritage Fair. This is a resolved item. 133, lift and move strategy and governance proposals. Here in Open Area, 3 recommendations are formally moved.
Seconded, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Rees, Councillor Rees, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. My question is a brief one, which on which scrutiny committees will this work report into? The live and move strategy. So I'm just wondering whether that reports into.
I assume, well, first of all, it will go to public. And secondly, I'm not sure we can choose which is the most favourable scrutiny for things to do. But I will take advice from Democratic Services, and they will tell us the appropriate scrutiny, and it will go to there. And my portfolio will be there for you to challenge and cross-examine.
Councillor Hannaford, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I can confirm that will come to my committee, the Strategic Scrutiny Committee, because Councillor Park has reports to us. So if you want to come along and talk to it, let the member services know, people who are not on the committee can come along and discuss it.
Right, no other speaking. Can we go to the vote, please? All those in favour?
That's unanimous vote, that has been carried.
Thank you. 134.
134, Exeter Community Lottery, and there's 4 numbers. 4, God, smart, it's Christmas. There's 4 recommendations here, Lord Mayor, which I formally move.
Thank you. Who's second?
Seconded, Lord
Thank you. Who's speaking on this? Anybody who wishes to speak? Councillor Reid, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I appreciate that this, I think, comes from a good place. This comes from wishing to support organisations, potentially small community organisations who may have difficulty accessing funds and so forth. But I'm concerned, yes, I will. But at the beginning?
Yes, you should.
Lovely, I'll do that. So I wish to, I've got a few questions and I wish to pose 2 amendments. Yeah, I was going to do the 4th person the amendments.
We're just a moment, please. We're cross talking in. There's 3 people cross talking, and really there should be only one. Now, would you put your point, please?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. So my concern is that I don't see. I'm very concerned that this could drive a wedge between some community sectors, with some being able to access these funds and some not being able to access these funds. And I think my colleague wants to speak on that, because I know it's such a very, very close to her heart. I'm concerned that it doesn't seem to me that this is highly compatible with the motion that we were very keen to support at the last council meeting to propose a cost of living crisis being declared, because we all know that lotteries are regressive. That's how they work. Unfortunately, that is how they work. they take a higher percentage of income from low-income groups. That is how they work, which is very concerning to me. I would like to ask Frohlihold if there has been a quantification of the effect on other community groupings that already have lotteries, such as the RD&E and schools, etc. How many organisations have their own lotteries whose fundraising would be compromised by an Exeter community lottery being launched? And I know about the safeguards of how many tickets individuals can buy, but has there been any modelling the potential impact on households if multiple members buy multiple tickets? And I'm aware this is part of the commercial programme of the council. So how much money is the council expecting to make from this? My amendment I'd like to propose, please, would be to remove the recommendations 1 to 4 and replace with following 2 recommendations. 1, to produce, prior to the decision being taken to proceed, a feasibility report on the financial impact for the council, the impact on the voluntary sector, and the likely impact of gambling on those people and households who buy tickets. Secondly, if deemed feasible, to consult with the public and voluntary sector on the establishment of a local lottery for Exeter in line with the consultation charter and report back to council on these findings. Thank you.
Who's seconding this for you? Thank you, Councillor. And it is open to debate on this particular point. On your amendment is now open to debate first before we discuss it in the rest of it. Right? Who wishes to speak? Councillor, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm going to note for the minutes and the camera recording this at my back, the wry smile on my face at a call for consultation from somebody who has neither responded to emails, sent emails, or attended specific consultation events that were laid on with regard to this. I think that really needs to be noted in the minutes. Your specific concerns about organisations and their ability or inability to access funding through this, again, I'm not really sure that necessarily stacks up. There's over 163 organisations in this city that directly get funded from the National Lottery. Now that ranges from the 5.5 million Heritage Fund to the Cathedral to Exeter Communities Together, which had a 6-figure sum to allow them to work with multiple faith groups all across the city. So there are lots and lots of organisations. Our own Exeter around there, gets funding from the National Lottery. So this isn't something new. I've not invented a wheel or a lottery wheel or anything of the type. What we're doing, we're proposing a sustainable way of getting extra community funding for organisations within the city. This isn't instead of, this isn't as a barrier to stop people. This is in addition to what is already an amazing grant scheme we've got here in the city. So there's lots and lots of opportunities out there for people. It's just, I don't know, it's like, what are you actually driving at? All I'm hearing is let's stop, let's consult, stop, let's stop. Consultation, it's not a binding, it's not on and off, it's ongoing. There's lots of discussions that have been had with our community partners, Exeter community initiatives, St Sidwell's community centre. There's lots of people who are really, really excited about the opportunity to get additional grant funding, because we all know how tough times are. You alluded to what we discussed last time we were in this room about the cost of living crisis that's going on. And that's affecting everybody, small organisations, large organisations. And what this is an opportunity for people to potentially give a little bit of money to support those organisations who are doing great work in the city. This is about incentivised giving, not gambling. There's lots and lots of safeguards that are in place, which you will know a little bit more about if you've emailed me or attended any of the briefings that we had to discuss this, but you chose not to engage in that process and come to this forum in this manner for whatever reasons. But actually, 82.5% of people who take part in 115 council-managed lotteries that are already in place in this country. As I say, we didn't invent a lottery wheel here. We're not doing anything groundbreaking. It's not like Edward's Court, a groundbreaking extra care facility. It's not like St Sidwell's Point, it's a groundbreaking passive house legislation. Sadly, we're following in the wake of others on this one. But 82.5% of people who play those lotteries are from ABC1 social categories. So the vast majority of people who play would not fit into the categories that you were describing in your comments. As I said, you would have known that if you turned up or emailed me previously. So
I won't be accepting these recommendations.
Councillor. Oh, Councillor, it's fine. Yes, I do, but I apologise. I did see it.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd just like to come back on a few of those points because, you know, it's not that we support or don't support this. You know, briefing that was put in place was put in place quite rapidly, and we appreciate that opportunity, but unfortunately, on a Friday night, rapid notice, it's sometimes not possible to be able to attend those, so apologies. I understand that. If I could just speak, please, thank you. I understand that Council isn't always the most exciting and fast-moving organisation, but there is a really good reason for that, and that is so that we can properly scrutinise the things that come through Council, and that we can properly and take time to look at these things rather than rushing them through. So I do just want to, you know, make that point, that it's not that we're trying to stop, we're trying to put the brakes on. It would just be nice to be able to actually have a bit of time to be able to look at these proposals and actually follow a proper scrutiny process before we commit to something like this that could have an effect on our communities. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes, before anybody goes on, Councillor Dobson, did you want to speak at
Not on the event.
That's right, thank you. Then, you want to, I mean, now, are you speaking, excuse me, as the proposer? Excuse me.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. I do refute the portfolio holders' comments, which I think are actually very disingenuous. Our group have engaged with your briefing. It was not a consultation. I went to and said that this should have been brought to scrutiny when you had an opportunity at the recent committee, and it wasn't mentioned in your report. Sorry, okay, so it is really important that we respect our relationship with the voluntary sector. And as someone who has worked in the voluntary sector for a career, I have been a beneficiary of the National Lottery that has invested so much in the community sector. But we know in the city that some organisations have not been able to participate in lottery-funded projects because of their values and beliefs. And one organisation actually had to pull out from a partnership because of that. We need to ensure that what we're doing as a council is inclusive. And I spoke with voluntary sector partners and organisations that I would expect to know about this didn't know about this. We haven't had a fully costed proposal. We have funding difficulties in the council. We need to know how this is going to be funded in terms of the administration, the financial returns that are going to be required each quarter, and we need to know how it's going to properly dovetail with the grants process. Will the money be kept separate so that those groups that don't approve of gambling can still apply to the council for funding? If it's all going to be melded into one, then that will then stop people from doing that. We don't have a fully outlined proposal here. We also need to recognise that a significant amount of money is going to be going from the ticket sales to the organiser. And a proportion of the money that is given in ticket sales, the public are going to be able to choose, and that's great to be involved. But there are other ways to incentivise giving. We want to incentivise giving. People we know in Exeter are incredibly generous to our voluntary community sector. We could incentivise giving by setting up a trust and asking people to donate to that, and they would actually get 20% gift aid from the government to actually improve the value of their grant. So what we're asking for is a full feasibility, so we actually know the true cost of the council, because these things don't come for nothing. We haven't had that proper information, and we do need to know the impact on that. And we also then need to have a proper consultation with the voluntary community sector, because informal consultations, some groups knowing, some groups not, you know, how will they be decided if who will get on that list to be a beneficiary from the lottery? We need to have their input to shape such a plan, rather than just sort of discussions with groups we happen to know. It is important, that's that's why we went through that whole process of developing the consultation charter. So our consultation is transparent and accountable, and everybody knows at the same time, so they know what to expect from the council in developing our relationship with the sector. So I'm very much supporting and welcoming these amendments.
Councillor Atkins, please.
I'm sure Councillor Pearce is going to come back with some of the comments on this about how it's not costed and the cost. So I won't make any comments on that. I've given him a signal that he's going to do that, but I really don't.
Councillor, can I just ask you, Councillor Atkins, Councillor Pearce has already spoken once to this. He can speak if he wishes, if the member doesn't go through.
I'm sure he can answer, his portfolio. Sorry, you saying he can't answer some of the
If you wish to ask a question, please do.
So I'm not asking a question. I mean, this is properly funded and there's no cost to the council because it's being done by an outside provider. The people on the other side, I think you said this is not being done, this is done too quickly. Well, we're 50 years behind the time here. I mean, I've been working for councils a long time ago. He said every council I've ever worked for has run its own lottery to fund good causes. What you're proposing is another 50-year delay, or 5 years, to stop money going to good causes in this area. And what do you mean costed? I mean, it will be self-funding, and it will be self-funding, and other councils have funded it themselves or sent it out. And if you go on the internet, you can see just about every council in this locality has a lottery scheme to support local schemes. And you know, Age UK, wonderful, support your local lottery scheme, because they give money to Age UK. I mean, this is absolutely wonderful opportunity. I mean, I don't know about you, Councillor, but I already give into lotteries, if you like, scope, and pay on a lottery, and I won £5 once, which of course I haven't cashed. You know, this is an opportunity for people like me to give back to our community, and this is the kind of people it's aimed at. And we're not going to win money, loads of money, we're going to win £5, big deal. And I think it's a wonderful opportunity, and I'm really shocked to hear from people across the other side who say that they support their community and good causes, but when we do it, you just jump up and say, make just unfounded criticisms. Thank you very much. I don't support the amendment, and I do support this fantastic opportunity for the people of Exeter and our local voluntary groups.
Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. 3 brief points. First, I object to the term regressive taxation in this context. I'm very against big style online gambling, but this is very different. If we lived in Cuba, we couldn't do this because gambling is illegal. And also, when you have your coffee mornings, and I had mine last year, we wouldn't be able to have a tombola. I recently entered your tombola and won some very classy bubble bath, which I was delighted to give to my male friend who won a house bath. We weren't paying our £10 to win money because we wanted to support the cause. I'm a human being. If I decide to donate to this lottery, as I do to some other things, there's no incentive. If I win, I'm going to be pleased. But Councillor Pearce has already pointed out, and he has got the data and the evidence to show that with these local lotteries, it isn't the poor and more deprived people that are participating. Most of them are the elderly people on their triple-locked pensions who want to support the cause, they want to do something for people in Exeter, and it's really a donation. And if they win, that's good. There is a safeguard in place if somebody tries to buy more than 20 tickets. So I don't think calling it a regressive taxation is fair. That's my first point. Councillor Moore, your point about excluding some communities, I know that people from the mosque, Muslims don't generally accept funding from gambling, but they still work with projects that do. They just don't take that bit of funding, but there are creative ways around that, so they can still benefit by working in partnership with people who are receiving extra money from this. It just won't fund their particular part of it, and that can be done very sensitively. That's it, those three things. The fact that it's older people, it's supposed to drive people, it's not a regressive tax, it's incentivized giving of a low scale, and Muslims can be included in the benefit, although they won't directly take the money.
Thank you, Councillor. Now, you wanted to speak, Councillor Bayer.
Just an observation on how it's all done. And I've got to make a confession to you all. My mother-in-law is a donkey sanctuary fan, and yes, I bought some donkey sanctuary lottery tickets. So, you know, that's what I'm saying. This sort of thing happens. Some of the concerns you said, and I read it what it says about the grants programme, it will be dealt with by the grants committee. But we're trying to open up, we're trying to make it democratic, we're trying to say to the grants committee, I don't think for one moment it's our intention to mix that in with everything else. And somehow this is a clever ruse of us to reduce what we're doing already in our grants pot. We will maintain that, and I feel sure it's not beyond the wit of the officers when they bring this, if we are lucky enough to get something, to say we have X amount here, which is being got from this, and I do believe we're sensitive enough. You know, sometimes, I know it's difficult, sometimes you've just got to trust us a little, just a little bit, trust us. We do not want to down-do anybody. Just trust us a little bit. Talk to the portfolio owner. I can see he's quite upset. He's put a lot of work into it. He's doing this for all the right reasons. And I'm afraid to say I can't support him now.
Would you stand? I would just say you cannot speak, but you can understanding for those if you could go to order.
Yeah, just like a couple of points of clarification really on some of the questions. So directly back to Councillor Moore, you referenced an email exchange that we had where in fact we discussed this item in detail, and I gave you a response as to how the money would be separated and ring-fenced and not be part of the general fund, and therefore not be excluding any groups who are already beneficiaries of our outstanding and very generous grants programme here in the city. So that's to be noted. In terms of the costings of this, actually I just brought up the papers from Exeter because I was pretty certain that the numbers were in there. And in fact, there they are. It talks about a fee of £1,173 per annum as registration and lottery gambling fees go in there, and that includes that's it. On top of that, what we're looking at is officer time. Now, this is an estimate.
You're going into detail now.
Yeah, I am in the detail. It's a specific response about how much it's going to cost us. So it's officer time, and it is an estimate, so I apologise for that, but it's an estimate based on 115 other councils, and they forecast between 2 and 3 hours of officer time per week to administer the scheme. The reason we go to an external lottery manager is that they bear the risk for the prize fund, and then they bear the administrative responsibility thereof. That's it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We now, can you put did you want to come back, please? Councillor.
So I think I totally understand that this comes from a good place. I really, really understand that from there. But I think that it's something that it's, and I take your point, Councillor, that cities have been doing this for many years. I really think that there is a great difficulty with things that exist already, that there hasn't been enough consultation. There are lots of groups who are not aware of this. There are lots of groups who currently have lottery fundraising who are not aware of this. And it seems that it's being pushed through quickly. I understand that the motivation behind it is good, but I cannot think that this is being pursued in the correct way. It should have greater controls for us to scrutinise what's happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Now we go to the vote on the amendment, please. Those in favour, please.
Seven in favour, wasn't it?
Those against?
So 26 against, Lord Mayor.
Abstentions? Now yes, it's not carried, so it is now open for debate as it is under resolution. Resolved, sorry. Yes, we're on the main item. Nobody explained. Sorry, Councillor.
It was a very useful briefing the other evening, for which I thank you. And as you will know, I raised two safeguarding concerns. One was how to ensure that under 16s don't join because it's online, and how one can ensure that multi-member households who don't necessarily share the same surname aren't all spending £20 a week on the lottery. I know that you indicated you would find answers from the external provider. Personally, I would be abstaining this evening because I don't feel comfortable voting in favour until I've had answers to those questions. But I thought it only fair to explain that because it was a most useful briefing and it did have a lot of information in it that got answers to those safeguarding issues.
Thank you, Councillor. Anybody else wish to? Councillor Diana.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the response to the question. You seem to say something different from the email this evening that you sent to me, which was very helpful. You said, funds for Christmas ticket sales that are directly attributed to one of the partner organisations be passed on automatically at the agreed rate proposed fixed sales.
Could you please, I can't hear you.
And then secondly, funds for Christmas ticket sales which are not allocated by declared preferences of the purchaser will be paid to a general pot. That is a general pot. It doesn't say whether it's connected with the main grants fund or separate. Organisations will be able to apply for these funds is proposed that the criteria for assessment applications will mirror the current community grant scheme and align with these such as the council. That bit's fine, but it's really not clear how this is going to be administered, and that's proposed 10%. So there's still not lack of clarity about the amounts that are going into the grants fund, how much for the administration, how much is going to go to the lottery provider, and how much of the donation is the council going to be making to gambling fund.
Thank you, Councillor. Anybody else wish to speak? Then can we go to the vote, please? All those in favour, please, of the recommendation.
It's 25 in favour, Lord Mayor.
Those against, please.
It's 5 against.
Any abstentions?
4 abstentions.
So that has been carried.
135, Lord Mayor, major capital project budgets, St Edward's Court Extra Care Scheme, Exeter Bus Station and St Sidney's Point Programme. Here, Lord Mayor, there are 5 recommendations which I formally move.
Thank you. And any discussion on this, please, who would like to speak? If then there's no Councillor Mitchell. I'm sorry, Councillor Mitchell, I missed you.
Sorry. Thank you, Lord Mayor. I've just asked the leader whether he can provide some final clarification on this simple project. In December 2014, the initial budget was 19.4 million. In late 2018, the programme was revised and upgraded to a standard we have now at 43.8 million. The last increase was to 51.8 million. Now the final bill has arrived. Could you actually give us what the end price is on this project, the bus station project?
Councillor. Does anybody else wish to speak? No, Councillor.
Well, thank you. I was pretty good at maths, so I don't need a calculator normally. However, all I would like to say, I will get you that answer, but all I would say is please bear in mind since 2014, we've had quite a bit of inflation, a number of you have failed contract, and in 2018 also what we've done is, if if you remember, we actually made further improvements to since it was brought there. Whereby we added extra gyms, we put the spa in, we did a lot of other things to update it, to improve it. Now, we can debate it, and I'll know I'll never convince you of its worth. I know that. But I'll give you that answer. I'll ask us to get that added up properly for you. But all I will say is, here's a number I will give you. I will give you 12,000 members who signed up to the leisure package, of which we were intending to aim for 10,000 over a 3-year period, and we've hit over 12,000. And I know some may come, some may go. That tells me, actually, we might have done the right thing in providing some good leisure facilities. If you look around, families going in there, mums, dads, children, I think it's a good facility. Passive house facility. It's won many awards. I think we've done the right thing. But I know you're interested in numbers. We'll get to that number at some stage. I think the 151 officer is adding them up. And this is like a newspaper. Latest bid coming in. Like, what is it? And the numbers is? Also, that's a lot. Well, that's well, I suppose we'll do the lottery numbers. We'll make sure the council check. I don't know. Sorry, it's getting that time on 54.8 million, which is the bus station and SSP. You know the bus station, those councillors on the county council, the bus station that we built for the county council because it's part of their transportation, but we decided to build it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Anybody else? Shall we go straight to the vote, please? Those in favour? Those against? You all right?
Yes, sorry, I'm just still keep the hands up, please.
Sorry.
It's 28 in favour.
Those against, please. And those abstaining.
6, 7 for myself, so that has been carried on.
Thank you very much.
Item 136, local government. Well, that's just the exclusion of the press for the next item. I don't believe there's any part 2 questions or items that anybody wanted to raise that I know of there. And so those are the minutes of the meeting. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Anybody to discuss only, but not the blue papers, please? Anything in the blue papers? No? Then we go straight to the vote, please. It's Christmas, ladies and gentlemen. It's just Christmas. Do you want to talk about it later? Right. We will have a 5 minutes break. How about that? No, don't rush and have a queue. seats. Yes, right. Please see, I did say six. Yes. Councillor Pierce, can we get ahead of it and carry on business? Can you now please propose your notice of motion, please?
Yeah, thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm just going to read the motion. So, this council stands firmly behind our UK Armed Forces and fully supports the aims of the Armed Forces Covenant. We welcome the new Armed Forces Act, but see the legislation as a missed opportunity to improve the lives of veterans here in Exeter. We note with disappointment that the Act, which makes Exeter City Council and local public bodies legally bound to have due regard to the Covenant when providing support to forces communities, that exempts central government from any such duty, creating a two-tier covenant for veterans. We note with further disappointment that Labour-led proposals backed by service charities and ex-service chiefs to enshrine the covenant fully into law, Conservative MPs voted down these plans to improve armed forces accommodation, employment support and pensions, and to end the scandal of visa fees for the families of Commonwealth and Girt personnel. We resolve to continue the campaign of forces charities to see the government strengthen the covenant and improve vital services to veterans.
Who seconds in this, please?
Councillor Wright.
Oh, Councillor. Yes, I think. Thank you. The easiest way to handle this, is there anyone that wishes to speak against this? Then, with your permission, we'll go to the vote on it. Do you reserve the right? Do you don't want to speak? Well, then we get, if you Councillor Jobson.
Sorry, Lord Mayor, the way you phrased the question, I was a little slow on the uptake. I do apologise. May I make it clear that this group supports our armed forces and the Armed Forces Covenant. Our armed forces fulfil many obligations and make many sacrifices in order to fulfil their duty and to keep us safe. This year they will likely do so in greater measure when they are asked to step in to ensure essential services are maintained whilst others take strike action. Members of the armed forces and their families deserve the Armed Forces Covenant, the promise our nation makes to them and to their families, the promise that they should not be disadvantaged because of their service, and a recognition of the sacrifices they make on our behalf and the responsibilities we owe them in return. Secretary of State Ben Wallace has stated, "We are grateful to the thousands of organisations across the UK that have demonstrated their support to the armed forces and their families by pledging to honour the covenant, by removing disadvantages our armed forces community would otherwise face as a result of their sacrifice. Placing the covenant into statute was one way to ensure it lasts into the future. It's a piece of legislation that we in Exeter should support wholeheartedly. It will undoubtedly change, there will undoubtedly be more statutory instruments as the time comes, but it is a first-class piece of legislation. And that is why we support the covenant and the statute, but cannot support this recommendation."
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Is there anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Following on from what Councillor Jobson said, I'm not clear why you won't support this motion. Why are you reluctant to, for example, remove the restrictions for our Gurkhas and others, which, that's a scandal that's been going on for years, and go in and support this motion wholeheartedly? I think you need to explain why you're not prepared to vote for this stuff, and I think people in Exeter would find overwhelmingly positive and morally correct for all the reasons that you've actually articulated. So I'm sorry, Lord Mayor, to sort of bring people back in, but that was the bit that was missing to me from the speech. I think you need to explain to us why you won't vote for this very sensible and moral motion.
Councillor, please.
Yeah, thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd just like to note, really, if we're going to debate this rather than move straight to a vote, is that this is really, really important for the South West. There's more veterans in the South West than anywhere else in the country. In particular, in Exeter, we've got about 3.9% of the population of veterans. Many of those are reservists currently and operate on a daily basis at our fantastic teaching hospital up at the RDU, as it's now rebranded, I believe. They form a really, really massively important part of society, and we should be doing everything we can to look after them. In terms of sort of a bit of a response to what Councillor Johnson said, that she wouldn't support this, I'm just going to quote, and I'm going to read it so I get it directly correct, because this is from the Royal British Legion, who is an esteemed organisation, very well respected all across. And their comment is, the Armed Forces Bill seeks to put the promise of the Covenant on a legal footing for the first time. But whilst the majority of the public believe it is the responsibility of national government to deliver, it is exempted from the new provisions. This cannot be right. The responsibility for many of the issues concerning our armed forces community rests with national government. I think that sums it up brilliantly, really, there. You know, this is a national government issue. They should be taking leadership. Should be relying on local councils who will do what we can and absolutely, you know, advocate for the causes of our veterans and the forces community at every available opportunity. But the power here rests with national government, and they should be trying to advocate themselves from exercising it.
Thank you. The Councillor Ledbetter, please.
Point of order, is Councillor Pearce just going up today? So that's the end of it, surely. Unless there's any...
Oh, did I miss that? I'm sorry.
I don't know, I'll leave it up to you, it's your meeting.
Well, all right, no, it's, he has wound up with me, yes, you are dead right.
I mean, I don't...
Are you on a point of order?
Yeah, Councillor Johnson, just to clarify, I don't want to speak for her, but she's fully in support of this, but doesn't like the way it's been run with that. In fact, being criticised, so that's taken that.
Right.
I myself will be supporting it as an ex-veteran. I know Councillor Newby is an ex-veteran, and probably other ex-veterans will.
Thank you, Councillor Ledbetter, for enlightening us. We now have to go to the vote, I'm afraid. It is, I should have seen that coming. That's my fault for not seeing that. Yes. But it is what it is. And if we have to go straight to the vote, that includes, it's already been wound up, Councillor Knight. Those in favour of this notice of motion, please.
It's 31 in favour of that.
Those against, please. One against. And those abstaining.
Two abstentions.
Okay, abstentions.
So that has been carried.
Thank you, thank you. Now, we go to notice of motion of Councillor Wood. Is that right? Please, would you like to do the name?
Thank you, Lord Mayor.
It will be the second thing. Thank you. Carry on.
Thank you. The motion was circulated with quite an informative preface to it, so I hope you had an opportunity to read that. The motion itself has needed to be slightly, the first first request of the Council has had to be finely tuned a little bit more to provide some specifics. So it now reads, and I'll read out the whole motion. The Council asks Executive to, this is the amended version, ensure that by the Exeter City Council AGM in May 2023, food provided at catered internal council meetings will be plant-based, and that it will showcase plant-based foods at catered events. Okay, and the next two items are as circulated. The amendment was shared with Democratic Services in advance of this. So the second proposal is that we ensure that all council-run external sites, including leisure centres, cafes and restaurants, have plant-based options available as part of their regular catering offer and advertised clearly on their menu. And the third point, set up a cross-party task and finish working group chaired by the portfolio holder of climate change and officers, elected members, including other relevant portfolio holders and invited experts to promote and embed these principles in Exeter City Council's food provisions where practicable. So that's the motion. And I'll now speak to the motion, if I may, Governor. Thank you. At its core, this motion is about awareness. It says food on the title, but it's about awareness. Awareness of the impact of choices we'll make and what the options are to reduce that impact. As we keep seeing, climate change is real. It's a fact, and we need to do what we can as individuals to address it. As people become more aware of climate change, people ask, what can I do? They ask me, what can I do? Especially at the moment when costs are rising and money is tight. The cost of electric cars, solar panels, retrofitting our homes have always been daunting. Good investment, but daunting investment. It's not something most of us can consider, especially at the moment. But it doesn't have to be massive. A statement I heard recently struck a chord with me, and it was, any reductions in emissions are better than none, and no change is too small. So there are a number of small changes we can all make, and one of those is what we eat. What we eat makes a difference. If we are aware of the impact of climate our dietary choices have, and what the options are, how our health is affected by what we eat, we can make informed choices. There is a shared understanding in our society that we should eat less meat. It's reflected in consumer purchasing on the high street. Climate change means we need to look at everything we do, what changes we can make to reduce carbon emissions, and consider food production, transportation, and sustainability. We are aware of the individual role and the huge challenges that farmers and food producers face. We want to support our local farmers and raise awareness of the value of locally sourced quality foods supporting our local economy. Food models are something we definitely need to explore. And those that do eat meat, how often do you think that meat comes from our local provider? How often do you think it's dead meat? The information attached to the motion submitted is a sample, just a sample of the breadth of information available, demonstrating the environmental and health benefits of increasing the inclusion of plant-based foods within our diet. We aren't saying people should stop eating meat. I'm a meat eater. I'm not saying that. What we are saying is that they may choose to stop eating meat. What we are also saying is that they should be aware of their choices and that eating more plant-based food is one of the actions that they can take. Personally, I'm looking at a New Year's resolution. I will shift one more day away from meat, so that it'll be 2 days a week I won't eat meat. I'm still not a vegetarian. In presenting this motion, I am asking the Council to play a role in raising awareness of the benefits of plant-based foods to ourselves, our families and our planet. And in our role as civic leaders, doing what we can to support the changes we as a society need to make. So we need to lead the way. Thank you.
Councillor Holland, please. Do you wish to speak now or speak later? You'll speak now? Yes. Right, carry on.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. As the seconder of this motion, I'm proud to bring it to this council, and I echo Councillor Wood's points about climate change and the decisions that we make every day impacting our world. This council passed a climate emergency motion in 2019, and we've been bold and ambitious in enacting policies that promote action towards climate change, such as passive house standards for new developments, retrofitting council houses, and this comes on the back of those actions. We have an ambitious target as a city council towards 2030, and we have to take concrete steps towards this. I believe this is a great example of climate leadership that we are taking. And whatever people's individual view on diet might be, which is obviously something very personal to each of us, what we know is that the science is clear that we need to stop eating as much meat as a people, as a society, as a planet, to help future generations. And we've seen an example of an emergency. So we often say climate emergency. We've seen an example of COVID and COVID lockdown and what that did to us as a society. And I'm sure lots of people have individual, how that's impacted their family, their friends, their society, their work. And it will be the same with the climate. It will be the same, if not worse, if we don't act now. And I think, you know, to bring this point home, we've just seen one of the hottest summers on record. We're now in the depths of winter. You know, these extreme climates that we're seeing are really linked to climate change. So this motion is, as Councillor Wood has pointed out, it's not saying everyone go vegan overnight, everyone eat plant-based. It's not saying that. It's asking people to think, giving them a choice, asking them to cut down on their meat consumption for the sake of the planet. And I would just like to end by discussing very briefly the health benefits as well of eating plant-based. A local dietitian has submitted a quote about how eating more plant-based food can help with support healthy living. And they say the British Dietetic Association states that a well-planned plant-based diet can support healthy living at every age and every life stage. Improving our diets and adopting a plant-based approach can be a win-win, addressing both climate change and our health concerns. And I'm delighted that Exeter City Council is leading by example with this motion. So I'd like to end my comments there, but I will be obviously supporting this motion and hope that colleagues will do so.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. First of all, I'd like to say I'm broadly supportive of all those measures which are being taken to get us down to zero emissions by 2030. However, I do have a few points that I want to raise, and they are unintended consequences. It's the phrase I have used on other matters. If we take this motion to its conclusion, I wonder how much revenue will be lost by charities, businesses, and not least of all by Exeter City Council because of a change in policy. Firstly, I'd like to ask, what will happen to the cattle market, the livestock centre, which we own? We gain quite a lot of revenue from there. Will that shut in May? Probably not, because it's been amended, the suggestion has been amended. I've attended umpteen sweepers' lunches in here, which are sponsored by McDonald's. McDonald's give money to the council, they provide food for the people who come here, and that will all be meat-based as far as I'm aware. What will happen to the bacon rolls when we have the blue light, we celebrate blue light on the 9th hour, the 9th day of the 9th month? It's something I know they look forward to. The Guildhall is used as a wedding venue, okay? We probably get £1,000 a pop. Is that right? We've got £1,000 a pop? Well, anyway, they come here, but we don't offer an optional extra to provide food for them. It's up to them. If we adopt this motion today, I wonder how many people will say, well, we were going to do our own catering, we would like sausage rolls, but because we're coming into the Guildhall, perhaps we shan't come. I'd also like to say that while I've been a councillor, I look back in my diary on the weekend when I read the motion, I've attended 5 Lord Mayor's banquets Those banquets are held in this hall, and I was pleased to come to support the charity of the Lord Mayor. I would have done much the same this year, but I wonder if I will come if there's not any meat on the menu. I'd also say that I sit on the licensing committee, and those colleagues in here who belong to licensing will also know that we issue rolling licenses. And the people who sell hot dogs and burgers around the city of Exeter and on our industrial estates, they are mainly meat-based. Are we saying as the council we are thinking or considering actually not issuing those licenses? Another revenue stream of £300 a time that we won't get. We now own the Guildhall, which is packed up with restaurants and cafes. Many of them are meat-based. Are we going to say that in the future, if those licenses come up for renewal, are we actually going to not renew them? There's a thought there. I was pleased to see today on the internet that we're promoting the farmers market at the top of South Street. That also is another revenue stream. There are two stalls there. One does meat pies, the other one does fresh meat. I just wonder whether or not we're going to allow those to go ahead. Now, I've long respected the choices of my friends, my colleagues and family when they're ordering vegan and vegetarian meals, and I'm pleased to see there's a suggestion that there will be plant-based options on the menu at our outside events. However, I cannot and will not support this motion for the reasons that I've outlined, if only about the revenue. I mean, one last thing, the Exeter citizen. When I became Lord Mayor in 2019, I asked if it was possible for the mayoralty to be promoted in a different way, in a better way. And I was told that there probably wouldn't be space in the citizen because they needed the revenue from the advertisements that go in there to actually fund the paper. And I understood that, and I stepped back and said no more. Are we going to begin to censor the advertisements that go into our own paper that goes to all the homes? Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor.
First, a point of clarification. McDonald's do offer vegan something burger, which is absolutely delicious. And secondly, just to say that this motion isn't saying that we won't, nobody should buy local meat, nobody should eat any meat. What it's saying is we want to raise awareness that what we eat is a political choice, it's neutral. Just as we might choose whether to take a long-haul flight or not, based on thinking about climate change, and that's a very personal choice. And you know, we might have a whole lot of reasons why they take a flight. It doesn't make them a bad person. There may be people that can't eat a plant-based diet totally because of health needs. It isn't saying everyone must go vegan. It's just saying let's raise awareness that when you choose what you eat, a bit like when we choose what we wear, whether it's fast fashion or sustainable fabrics, we are making a choice that affects future generations. It's saying let's have plant-based food at internal events. Anything external, like the Lord Mayor's banquet, there will be plant-based options showcased, but meat will be no problem with having meat at those. That's my understanding of it, and I support this motion.
Fine, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And I'd like to add this is a very welcome and perhaps for the first time in council, a delicious motion. I'm not entirely sure what I've done this before. So, yeah, you can read this motion. You can read that bit, did you? I very much welcome this. Food emissions, as it's been mentioned already, that they do have a huge impact, and a large proportion are actually from animal agriculture, which includes dairy as well as meat, and they do have a huge impact. And it's great to see that this will have an actual impact on our journey to net zero, so I'm really very excited about this. I myself have plant-based several years ago, so I am mildly biased. I'm just going to throw that out there. I'm not going to declare an interest and leave though. So one of the things that I really love is that it's going to introduce options onto the menu. One thing as being plant-based, it's got a lot easier now, but actually it removes the group's ability to go to a certain venue. Because if one person can't eat, they generally aren't that mean. I have actually So that does happen. But to have actual options that people can eat means that groups can actually all eat together in those locations. So I do believe this is a really good step. I mean, obviously, I'm biased and I would love to see it to be all plant-based, but you know, I do accept that people are able to make that choice, and actually I don't want to take away that choice for them. And it's great to see that we will be actually reducing the meat and dairy intake within this council, and I very much echo Councillor Oliver's point there, that we're showing people, we're actually really making that awareness higher on the agenda. So, as I say, I've said it about 10 times, it's very welcome. And one thing I would love to do though is invite the portfolio holder and anyone else who'd like to have a go and take part in Veganuary. It's a great thing to be a part of. I've done it myself. It is traditionally held in January, and you basically try plant-based for a month. And you pledge it to try it for a month. Doesn't mean that you're then going to sort of keep going, but it's just really exciting because you get to actually try all of these different foods, and it's a way to actually really see what the difference is in the diet and how that can affect you. It doesn't have to be in January, so you don't have to take it up straight away. You can pledge at any time of the year. So I'd really love and encourage people to actually have a look at that and try it themselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Swansby. Councillor Wright, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I would just like to say that I've been involved in a serious long debate over this myself and Councillor Colin, because for me the right to choose was very important, and that is in there, in this motion, the right to choose. I do get a little bit defensive sometimes when I'm told to ride a bike everywhere, and sometimes I can't. I'm going 25 miles and I would fall off my bike, whatever. If I'm told, don't fly, cut down on your flights, I've only ever done one flight in my life. That's a lie. I've done two because I came back again. And I choose not to fly. But the whole sort of thing, sometimes when we're thinking about things being imposed upon us to try and keep up with this green agenda, that we can tick those boxes and say, I'm greener than you are, really, really gets my goat, pardon the pun, gets my vegan goat's cheese. It really does. So, the group will know. I do get defensive over this. I want people to be able to choose. I want people to be able to know the impact of things that they're doing. I don't eat meat, but I will have a fag as soon as I go outside this chamber. You know, I'm not saying I don't eat meat, so I'm going to live a long time. Right? That's not it. You've got to be able to make the choices for yourself and be able to have the freedom to make that choice and just have something sort of added to the plate, as you said, that doesn't exclude anybody else. The only part in here, Councillor Holland, that doesn't have a choice is that we have said that for all internal council meetings, the food will be plant-based. We don't actually cater for internal meetings that much anymore. As you will know, we used to enjoy a sandwich at a licensing committee together. It's bring your own now. So if you want to bring a ham sandwich, you can bring it. No one's going to stop you at the door for that. But the point here is to sort of highlight the fact that there are other options, and I certainly don't want to preclude our farmers and our livestock market, which is a really important part of what we have here. But many of those farmers are also producing food at the moment to go towards a plant-based menu. Everybody's managing to sort of move with the times and rethink things. So I will support this motion.
A question, Councillor?
Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Yeah, I welcome this motion. Very simple to you, Councillor Starling. I was a vegetarian at 14 and I've been vegan for quite a few years now. My very first meeting here at the council chamber, there was some food for everyone at the end, but nothing for me. There was at least 3 of us here who ended up going over to Burger King to get plant-based milk. So, in reaction to my comrade, colleague, sorry, Councillor I'm also on the licensing committee. I think you know that we've had quite a few granting of licenses recently. We had some people who are
who do food and burgers and ice cream, and one of the questions I asked every single one of them was, do you do a vegan option? All but one said yes, and the one that didn't, I was more than happy to grant their license. I would never have stopped them because they didn't do a vegan or a plant-based option. It's entirely up to them. And I said it with tongue in cheek, but it was just interesting to know. You say about bacon sandwiches. It might surprise you to know that you can actually get plant-based ones now. So you can have a bacon sandwich. Also, external catering, I think that's already been covered. We don't do that, so they can have whatever they like. Sorry. Can't read my writing now. So basically, yeah, I support this motion, and as Councillor Spy says, I'd personally like to take it further and make it all vegan, but obviously I wouldn't do that. I never ever preach people to any about the fact that I'm a vegan. If people ask me questions about being a vegan, then I will answer them, but I will fully support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. The Councillor Beverley.
Thank you. It's quite interesting to see that the Labour Party is trying to outgrow the Green Party. I suspect. I have, Councillor Holland, I think the point he was trying to make was this, he worked as thin and wedge, to speak up. And I was quite interested. I was Councillor Holland. It's Christmas, you can allow me just a little bit, Tom. So you mentioned about political choices. This is probably why you have a lovely, juicy red steak, and I don't mind blue. So, I also must stand up for Devon butchers, especially two in my patch, that's Argos and Darts. I think if you went to them, they would certainly know where their meat came from. So Councillor will be careful about saying that butchers don't know where their products come from. And certainly they produce a lot of Devon-based meats, and I'm very pleased to support them. So the main point I want to make is, I know vegans, I know vegetarians. I have friends who are vegans. Where am I going? I like meat. I don't try and impose my choices on them. I don't appreciate people from the other side who impose their choices on them. I think it's a personal choice what we say. We shouldn't be dictated to what we should have to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ward, please.
Thank you very much. I very much welcome this motion. And I remember a few executives ago, meetings ago, I caused a little bit of disturbance because I asked about the carbon emissions and their accounting of at Edwards Court. And I was very pleased to receive the email from Councillor Denning, who confirmed that these would indeed be taken into consideration. So I think this is a welcome follow-up to that. And I would just like to sort of clarify the amendments, please, Councillor Wood, in terms of will the member be offering plant-based options or in full? I'm not quite clear about the amendments, so maybe you could I was trying to catch up with it as you read it. And secondly, it talks about, in the third one, the task and finish group about food provision. And as we've already heard, within council and council situation, we don't actually have much food provision, so we probably aren't going to have much to talk about. So does that word food provision include things like procurement? Because Councillor Denning suggested some very good suggestions around options to consider in terms of reducing carbon emissions from food, or does it just apply to food provided at council events? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Lights, please. Councillor Lights.
So I'm vegan. I have been vegan since 2003. It used to be very difficult, but we have a lot of choices now. I don't see the Guildhall Council Holland somewhere where I can't go. There are lots of plant-based options there, as the motion sets out. Civil society is simply showing their data. More and more people are open to having the options, and that's what this is about, really. It's about putting those options on the table. And so 14.5% of global greenhouse gas emissions come from dairy produce, animal products, meat and dairy. So, you know, it's hard to have these discussions because I understand that people can take it very personally, that they don't want to change their lifestyle. That change is happening anyway in quite a lot of the population. But we have to think about the immense privilege that we have and people that we live here who live with, you know, high carbon footprints. If you look at the carbon footprints around the world, we have a high quality of life. We have access to everything that we need. Why can't we lower emissions where we need to? This is about leaving a habitable planet for future generations. It is a compromise. It's a small compromise. We've made those compromises with electric vehicles or solar panels. And for some reason, when you talk about diet, people take it very personally. This isn't about what you're eating at home. You can eat whatever you want at home. You can support your local butchers. That's all fine. This is about leading the way in the council. We have done that in many ways. We have done that with the solar panels. We've done that with the electric vehicles. We haven't done that with diet. We've been very careful skirting around that. I understand why. But you know, we have to move away. And the data is very clear. There is a report that came out in 2019 where scientists came together and looked at the future of agriculture, and they said if we really want to lower our emissions, we should adopt what they call a planetary health diet. I urge you to look this up if you haven't heard of it. And this diet actually could feed millions, could feed billions. It could feed everyone in the world. That's what this data shows. It's very thorough data. Please do take a look. And the diet says it should be a predominantly plant-based diet, and you should have dairy once a week and meat once a week. It's not my numbers. These are the numbers that will enable future generations to live and have a sustainable habitat, right? We've had that. We've been very privileged. We've been very lucky. What are we leaving for future generations? It's such a tiny thing to compromise. I hear all these things about, you know, what about sausage rolls? Greg does a great beef and sausage roll, by the way. But actually, you know, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Actually, we have to think about the fact that we came to this position, we burned a lot of fossil fuels. We did that. Developed nations did that. And now we have to get those emissions down, and we are not. How much gas are we burning in the UK today? Does anybody know? It's a very large figure. We have to look at where we can reduce emissions, and they do come heavily from agriculture, but also stepping aside from emissions, it also is to do with land use and fertilizer that's used on that land. So there are lots of very serious arguments, and not just coming from activists. This is really solid data, and you can look it up on Our World in Data or Carbon Free or the report I already mentioned. So I wanted to make those points broadly. But secondly, I wanted to make a different argument, which is from a completely different angle. I think the science is very clear that we need to adopt more plant-based diets, and I think it's great that the council will lead the way on that and welcome this motion for that. But I want to speak just quickly from a different voice, because this is an invisible voice that you never really hear about, and this is people with allergies. The top allergies in the UK are nuts and dairy. I have a dairy allergy. I never tell people about this. You know, I'm a member of several allergy-based organisations, but I don't really like to talk about it. I think it is important because I have been to these events where there is nothing for me to eat.
And so say that this is going to go, if you're reminiscing, we should be speaking to the committee.
Okay, well, what I'm trying to say is there are millions of people in the UK who can't eat dairy. Now, at my kids' school, you're not allowed to take nuts in because so many people have allergies, but they don't apply that to dairy for some reason. So I have been to many of these events where there is nothing for me to eat. And you know, the difference for these millions of people that you don't really think about is that you're talking about a privilege of being able to choose what you want to eat. We don't have an option at all. And all this is about really is putting options on the table. We'll still be supporting local businesses. We'll still be supporting we're not saying that you have to stop farming altogether, but that is the way that the tide is turning, and I think people just need to sort of look at us a little bit and just keep up with that data, because it is very solid, and it's very important that we make these choices based on evidence and not just how we feel about it.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bayani.
Yes, thank you. I will be brief.
Thank you.
From a certain generation, speaking of a certain generation, I'm not sure if you're the same age as me, but you talk like it. What I'm trying to say is, from the generation of meat and two veg, no, it's not what we do anymore. I mean, pasta, guacamole, who ever talked about that for no? And now the choices are there. There's so much more we can do. And with allergies in particular, it is very clear. I know that my own journey is, I can't quite get to vegan yet, okay? I still like milk in my coffee, okay? And I know I will do something about that. I know I will do something about that. So I'm on that journey. I have predominantly meat. I will have the odd sandwich when I'm out walking around the green sometimes, but primarily I meet once a week. Don't like council or not, because I'm generally down at the council and he's offering a vegan option now, and I've just got to get my head there. So many of us are in transition. Don't poke us, encourage us to get there eventually, and we will. And finally, we'll go from a health point of view, being a diabetic, okay, I do know the value of having a good, decent meal sometime which is not full of stuff. And that's why I don't barbecue burgers or anything. I'm into Linda McCarthy sausages and all that stuff. Because it's less mess, guys. It really is less mess to clean up afterwards. So what I'm saying is don't poke everybody. Give us a chance to get there. I personally am on my journey. I'm not quite there yet. Councillor Ledbetter, you need to join me on that, and you'll find it absolutely fine. And don't put me out, finally, don't put me out of any myth. I'm assuming Foster's is plant-based. And if it is, I want my beer to remain plant-based. As long as it is, I'll be happy. Thank you, good beer.
Councillor Mitch, I will allow you, but keep it brief, will you please?
Very brief point, Chair's office. The argument is one. I don't think the argument is the issue. I would just like clarification. I think Councillor Ledbetter mentioned in regard to point one, which appears to have no option, whereas in two you're offering choices, which I think is quite the way to go forward. Whereas, can you address the issue that is only the plant-based issues that we deal with? I think that needs clarification. I can support at this stage two of the three. Have difficulty on the first one on the compulsion side rather than choice. So would you therefore, if you're not willing to clarify the point to myself, be willing to accept separate votes on each of the three, because they are distinct separate points, not interconnected. So I could therefore support two if I couldn't support the third.
Councillor, what are you going to... It's just one moment, Councillor Wood. Councillor Hannaford.
Thank you. I wasn't going to speak on this, Lord Mayor, and I'm now reassured all of the choice elements in our idea, because I agree, you know, that is very important. And I've listened to what everybody has said tonight, and I agree with most of it. But what I have not heard tonight, which I am now going to attempt to advocate for, is you talked about the carbon footprint, you talked about your health and the global situation, but nobody's talked about the animals, have they? The fact that the animals themselves are being killed to provide the meat that we eat, I eat, and that's a whole part of it. It's implied in the motion, it's implied in the debate, but Councillor Lights has talked about the voiceless, or the livestock are essentially voiceless, the sentient beings that we have to kill and farm, and we often treat very, very badly, particularly chickens, and particularly the pig industry as well. The pig is a very intelligent animal and it's treated very badly. I still eat the bacon sandwich, I still occasionally eat pork, but I do have the awareness that there's been pain and suffering as part of that journey. So I do think, I would urge you all in all of your discussions to put that to the centre. If you do eat meat, let's try and aim for well-husbanded, well-cultured meat, and speak out as well against the bad practices in farming and food production, because, you know, the animals have a role in this, and I didn't hear that voice tonight. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Right, Councillor Wood. Please get on your feet quick.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll just pick up a few points that have been made. The livestock market, fabulous resource that we provide, well supported, and I wouldn't want to damage it in any way, the same as the business of our local butchers. But I have to say that unless I've missed something, we aren't passing a bylaw. We aren't going to make the huge changes and impacts that seem to be being cooked into what is actually a motion about repealing. What will do that is the market. When the market is changing, if the capital market has to change what it does, that will be down to consumers, it will be down to us. So yeah, don't give us too much glory. With regard to the taking it point by point, I'm sorry, but I'm not prepared to do that because I think it's down that road that we start to dilute the effectiveness of the package. Talking about the third point, which was raised by Councillor, sorry, it's about mirology, that was it. Yeah, and procurement, and that will fall within the task and finish group. That task and finish group is going to provide detail, but also about messaging, and it's also about, but mirology is in the mix, but it's in the mix where it's showcasing plant-based food. So that means there are options in the events that are put on by Mirology, but that plant food is featured. More than just an option, it's showcased. I think the question of McDonald's ever expanding vegetarian range has been given. Hosted events here, I think that was already answered, that they are independent events if you want. And licensing, no, you're not going to make it a requirement. I think we'll leave that in the safe hands of the consumer. I think they will, in time, make their choices felt. And I have to say that in terms of no choice when you went around eating plant-based food, I don't know about you, but I've been caught up in conversations or just delayed in getting to the buffet table. And what have I had a choice of? Vegetarian or plant-based food. Tell you what, it was nice. And it opened my mind, because up until then I was a burger and bacon guy, and it's nice. And of course, if we are talking about going off the piece with regard to healthy eating, we're into bacon totties and sausage rolls, chip butties, can't beat chip butties, very tasty. Definitely not healthy, but definitely no meat in it. Anyway, I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now into the voting situation. It's an application, is it, to the recommendation. So those in favour of the vote on the recommendation.
It's 29 in favour on that.
Those against?
There's 3 against.
Any abstentions, please?
3 abstentions for that, so that has been carried.
Thank you. Now this is the cabinet. Yes, and notice of recommendation from Councillor Atkins. Yes. Yes, Councillor. Can we just, you're going to read this in a minute. Do we go ahead, please?
I just want to move the motion. I'm not going to read it out, and it's very long.
Right. And is there a second there, please?
Sorry.
Yeah.
So I've got lots of people want to second it. I just want to start this by saying a lot of people have asked me if they need to declare an interest. And I took advice on this. And you know, just about everybody in this room will know a woman who's affected by state pension injustice. There are so many of them. 3.1 million, 6,000 in Exeter. You'll have a mother, mother, grandmother, wife, sister, cousin who is affected by this injustice here. So relax on that point. This is the second motion on this topic to come to this council. The first was in 2016, before I was a councillor, and a motion was passed to write to the government to ask them to ensure a just transition to state pension entitlement for those women who had the right to retire at 60 taken away very quickly in 2011 by the government. And there was a response. Since then, absolutely nothing has been done to right that wrong. And the campaign that's been fighting this injustice, as probably everyone knows, is called WASPI. It's gone into the language, Women Against State Pension Inequality. And they say that, on average, women have lost up to £50,000 in state pension after retirement age was up to 65 and then 66 very likely, meaning that all women born in the 1950s couldn't properly plan for their retirement. And so what has the WASPI campaign been doing? Well, they took the campaign to the Parliamentary and Health Service Ombudsman. And the report from the Ombudsman found that the Department for Work and Pensions had failed to take adequate account of the need for targeted and individually tailored information when communicating changes to the state pension age. And their failure was such that it amounted to maladministration. Women have been impoverished and disempowered by this failure to properly inform them of significant changes to the state pension age of up to 6 years. And I'm sure everyone around here knows heartbreaking stories. I know women who've been affected by this here in Exeter, forced to sell their homes, deplete their savings, apply for state private benefits for the first time in their lives. Women who planned for their retirement, thought they were going to get their pension, and decided to take early retirement to look after disabled husbands, parents, etc., and then had the rug pulled out from under them. And so, as I said, we've got so many women. And these women feel betrayed and totally undermined, that are really affected by it. They are part of a proud generation of women that has taken pride in contributing to society and public life and in supporting their families and friends. And these women, born in the 1950s, didn't benefit from generous paternity benefits or support with childcare, and in many cases didn't get equal pay, equal opportunities for training and advancement. And not having adequate childcare, paid for childcare, meant responsibility, because that was the climate in women in the 60s and 70s, that women stayed at home, looked after the kids if kids had to be looked after and there weren't nurseries. So women of that group, they lost out on career advancement and money while they were looking after the children, which meant there's a huge pay differential. I knew the pay gap between the earnings of men born in the 1950s and the earnings of women born in the 1960s, 50s and early 1960s, and that's why the state pension age was 60 for them, to take account of that. So this allegedly was all about speeding the levelling up of poor men being having to suffer the inequality of having to retire at 65. But it wasn't about inequality, righting the wrong of inequality, because actually men got compensated increased pensions a long way back. But this has been really aimed at taking benefits away from women at a time of austerity, and it was part of that austerity agenda, and it continues to be part of that austerity agenda. And this is now a matter of urgency for women to be compensated for that failure. And what we're seeing now, because the failure to compensate women for the last 10 years Women are dying without receiving justice. Every day that passes sees this figure increase. Over 200,000 Waspi women have died since 2015. And what we're seeing now in the state, in an era where we've got cost of living crisis, we see the impact of that falling more increasingly on women, I'm afraid, and older women than on men, so increasing the injustice. So a charity called Independent Age, Director of Communications, said that before the COVID pandemic, 20% of women over the age of 65 were living in poverty, with food inflation now at 12%, plus obviously the energy cost rising. The current picture is like to be much worse for these women born in the 1950s who didn't get that pension and suffered as a result of it. So I hope you'll support this motion and I recommend it to you. Thank you.
Before I go, excuse me, before I go any further, Councillor Oliver, are you going to speak now or later, or it might be easier to do what I did earlier? Is there anybody wishing to speak against this? And it seems no. So I think at that point, I think we can go straight to the vote. No? Councillor Sutton, I'm so sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I don't wish to speak against, I wish to speak in favour. I would beg your indulgence in that we actually have a proper debate about this. I know it's been a long evening, and I know we've had a lot to discuss, but I think there are some very important points that Councillor Atkinson has raised in this. My name's Rachel, and I'm a Waspy woman, so Councillor Atkinson is quite right. You all know someone who is a Waspy woman, you know me, and there will be many others that you know as well. And I was a member of the council in 2016, and I did speak on the original Waspy motion that was agreed here. And really, what I'm going to say is that I hope everybody in this chamber is going to support this, because this is about righting a terrible injustice that was done to women of my generation, which left them completely unable to make the necessary changes to their financial planning and their future because of the way that this legislation was brought into being, the speed at which it was brought into being, and the lack of communication around it. It's perfectly within the rights of the government to make changes to retirement ages, and you know, there are arguments in favour of equalising the retirement age between men and women. When the original state pension legislation came in, the life expectancy of working men and women were very different, and they are still different, but the differentials have changed. But what this motion is about, and Councillor Atkinson has provided a lot of significant and very telling statistics on this, is real people are suffering, and real women, many of whom we may have known, have actually died before there was an opportunity to actually benefit from compensation on this. And this is really important. It's really important that governments sometimes take a look at what they've done and go, you know what, we've got that wrong, and we need to make recompense to those people who've been so badly wronged. I was genuinely shocked when I read the statistics that nearly 250,000 women will have died waiting for this injustice to be righted by the end of this year. And that truly shocked me, and I do know a bit about this campaign. So I won't prolong this debate too long, but I will say that I hope that everybody will support this motion, because it is very important to people like me and to people like the other women who we represent and who we know and care about, that we write and ask in how much hope, I don't know, that the government re-looks at this and actually accepts that this was maladministration, and this is a grave injustice, and they can put it right. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Denning, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Again, I support this motion and agree with Councillor Atkinson and Councillor Sutton on this. About 3 or 4 months ago, I had a brown envelope put through my door, and I thought, oh my God, how much do I owe the tax man? But it wasn't. It was my invitation to claim my state pension. On the 23rd of December, I will be an OAP officially. However, I should have got my pension 6 years previously, okay? I was one of the women, quite rightly, that sat and said, I wasn't allowed to join a pension because I was a low-paid worker and I was a part-time worker. I had 4 children. I stayed at home to look after my children for quite a while. There was no childcare provision. Women at that time were in low-paid work, okay? When we couldn't actually join a pension, we couldn't afford to pay for it anyway because our pay was so low. The only time I started my career was in my late 30s and 40s when my children had grown up. And to be perfectly frank, had it been for the trade union movement, I would never have had the career that I had, the education I had. I speak for all women, like Councillor Atkinson and Councillor Sutton. We need to put right what was really done wrong by us. I was told you should have known about this. Well, all I'll say to you is this. I went to a government thing about this, and they said, we did inform you. And they said, we put leaflets in a doctor's surgery. And no, I was never ill, I never saw one of them. And one of the ads was 2 dogs sat on the beach. One saying to the other, we need to think about the pension. Well, please tell me, what does that say to anybody? We need to put this right. Exeter City Council should pass this motion. We should fight for these women and give respect to the men and women that have passed away without this injustice being put right. Thank you.
Councillor Ward, please.
Thank you. I'm Walker Tweed, you'll be pleased to know. I just wanted to welcome the motion. Thank you, Councillor Atkinson, for this, and also the Warsby campaign, who've run a very dignified campaign for a very long time. Thank you, councillors who shared their stories.
Councillor Holland, are you right, Darren? Do you want to? You right? Councillor Holland, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. You'll be pleased to know that I give this 100% support. I sat in this room 6 years ago when we were lobbied by the ladies of Waspy. They came in with these bright purple sashes. They walked down the high street, and I admired them for what they did. My wife was born in the early 50s, and my calculation was she was disadvantaged to the tune of £28,000, and has only now recently taken a state pension. So without reservation, I'm pleased to support this motion. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Diana, would you like to finish? Anybody else who wishes to speak, please? Councillor Oliver, please.
I think I'm speaking as the seconder. I know there's some confusion, so I will do my seconder speech, which will be very brief, to say that I'm not against the pension age being the same for men and women, but I am against the way it was brought in at such short notice. I think it was an injustice, a terrible injustice, to those women born in the 50s, and I welcome this motion and totally support it, and I hope everybody in the chamber will.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Atkins, would you want to respond? No? Right, ladies and gentlemen, we go to the vote, please. Those in favour, please. No. Yes, even without asking, yes. Thank you. There's no members' questions, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm the standing order reign. So we come to a close now, and we'll join you for hot toddy upstairs.
Those are able to take their stand,